Paolo said he'll be late. So. Hey there. We are live.
Hey.
Just Scott and I for a moment. Everybody's late.
I was almost late myself.
Yeah. Scott just showed up 30 seconds ago. Palos IM'd us, said they kept him late at his new job, so he's going to be a little late.
That's fine.
I don't know what happened to Daisy. All of a sudden, she was supposed to be on tonight. She was all excited. And then all of a sudden at 2 o'clock, I saw some post from her on Facebook that said, oh, there she is.
Hello.
I guess she made it back from her lobster run.
You've been summoned.
I did. And look, there they are. They're all in the box, and I'm gonna be cooking lobsters at you because I have to.
Speaking of lobster, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
We've got a local food truck, and they're also opening up another restaurant here in town later on. What would you say is a good price for a lobster roll?
I'm sorry, where do you live again?
Virginia, but they import the lobster directly from Portland, Maine.
Okay. I only ask because there are things that they call lobster rolls out west,
right,
and in various places, and it's really those little Langostino lobsters. So a good price for a lobster roll made with those is like 50 cents. But I would say about $16, $17 is a lobster roll price that's really good.
That's kind of what I was expecting too. They're more expensive than that.
Yeah, I mean, there are some places. The place where I go in Maine because they're huge. They're like $22 because there's like a lot of lobster meat in there.
Right, but I also expect it'll be a little bit cheaper just because it's a local product.
You would think. You would think, but I mean, being a lobsterman is really tough up in Maine. So they've all the prices for lobsters and clams have gone up, quite a bit.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, anywhere between $16 and $25 is a unexpected price for.
I'm not sure it's worth that much.
Not to me.
Not for. I mean, not for an everyday thing. I personally, just purchase lobster meat and then put it in either bisque or make little lobster rolls myself. Winds up being.
Let me point out that I'm a fan of Holmes and Miss Marple, but I've never warmed to Hercule Poirot.
I
don't know why.
Yeah, I'm way more of a Miss Marple kind of person.
Man.
I think Poirot is just a little bit too pardon the term, princessy.
I'm a bigger fan of Brother Cadfael and Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what, Sherlock? I like Holmes. I particularly like the flapty back Cumberbatch one, but the actual Sherlock Holmes books, I just don't see the logic with the eliminate everything that's impossible, and then what you have left is what happens, because from a physics point of view, really nothing is impossible.
She doesn't see the logic of the logic.
Well, I don't, because
from a physics point of view, everything's possible.
Yes,
that's not true.
If you start getting into the quantum realm, it's
that's what I mean.
You can't spontaneously turn into a monkey. That's impossible.
How do you know?
But particles spontaneously pop in and out of existence. So it's theoretically possible.
My wife said, there's no poor people in Poirot.
That's totally true. That's, hold on 1 second. Kaylee, Obi. Go ahead, you.
The dogs are going wild.
Come on, baby. In you go. Come on.
Detectives. When's the last time you actually saw a Batman story was just being a detective?
I think there have been. I think the Warren Ellis one he wrote just last year, he was being a detective.
Okay.
But normally he isn't. You're right. I mean, like I said, the Batman I'm a fan of is the 1970s, detective Batman. But he just doesn't, after Dark Knight Returns, reinvented Batman. He stopped being a detective for the most part.
I would like, I mean, it's not going to happen, but I'd like to see just a street level detective style Batman story that doesn't bring in other heroes from the rest of the DC universe. And
there probably have been some, but
not many.
I don't know that happens anymore. But I don't read Batman, so I don't. I mean, there could have been 20 Batman detective stories in the last 20 years, and I wouldn't know.
Right.
I just know that Warren Ellis one was sold as that. Long Halloween. See, I read the Long Halloween. I don't know how much detecting was actually going on in there.
I've never really been a Batman reader, so I don't know how, when it sort of changed from detective to
Dark Knight Returns. That's when 1986.
I see.
See, my definitive Batman is not in the comics; it's the '90s animated series.
Yeah, I never warmed to that, so I don't know. Was he a detective in that one?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, several times. I mean, granted, he was fighting some supervillains as well, but yeah, he had plenty of stories that were.
I mean, mind you, in the 70s, he wasn't really a very good detective because his one clue was always the red clay that fell off someone's boot or tire or gloves that was only found in one part. He was forever discovering red clay soil. I was just like, enough with the red clay at all again.
Well, that was the way they did things back in the 70s. It's like every Scooby-Doo cartoon was old man, fill in the blank, wearing a mask.
But there was no red clay, and this wasn't a Scooby-Doo cartoon. But they did the red clay thing. They did the red clay thing in 70s TV shows all the time too. That was like a trope. There was forever red, and for some reason, I guess because it's something you can visually see easy. It was always red clay that's only found in one part of town. We have to go to the warehouse district.
Leia, hi.
Oh goodness!
I'm thinking back to Long Halloween, and I'm remembering one of the things I found frustrating about it is it took place over a year, which I enjoyed Long Halloween, but it took place over a year's time, and like each month there was a new clue, but you knew that the story wasn't going to resolve till issue 12, so the new clues were kind of useless. So it's like, what's so useful about a clue found in March when you know the story's going all the way to December? So I found that a little frustrating with Long Halloween. Though, like I said, I enjoyed it. It's one of the Batman stories I've read in the last 20 years. What year did Long Halloween come out?
I don't know. I haven't read that one.
You never read it? It's a decent read.
I didn't read that. I didn't read
Tim
Court
Sale and Jeff Loeb. What was that?
I didn't read Court of Owls either.
Oh, that was terrible. There's no reason to read Court of Owls. I read the first 6 issues of Court of Owls, and man, was it awful. It was mainly awful because, who was it? John Snyder, the writer, would write a cliffhanger at the end of each issue, which I appreciated because rarely are there cliffhangers at the end of comic books anymore.
Right.
But then he'd just kind of ignore it at the beginning of the next issue.
Gotcha.
TGIF.
God, I hate
Late to the party. We have some cooking going on. What's for dinner? Lobster. Daisy's cooking up some lobster. Welcome to the 3-day weekend. I was actually happy. Hello there, Jack Yo. I was actually, speaking of a 3-day weekend, I was happy to get out some, got the covers to the printer for The Lot #4, Pirate Queen #2, and Monster Kill Squad #2. Did the production on them because Carl, the editor I'm working with, was like, I want to get they're due. They're usually our deadlines are on Tuesdays. He's like, I want a 4-day weekend for my birthday, so we're going to try to get these out of here on Friday. I'm like, sounds good to me. Isn't lobster like $20 a pound nowadays? Could be.
It is. I don't even know. My dad's 88, and my birthday's in November, but he got my birthday mixed up with somebody else's in the family, so he's like, "Happy birthday!" Here are 4 lobsters, and sent them to me. But it's kind of nice because I'm having the surgery on Wednesday, so happy surgery.
Lobster.
So yeah, I do not know how much lobster is, but no, I do not habitually order 4.5 pound lobsters for myself. And
a Lobster Johnson trade paperback, and it's not a pound, so it's probably more than $20 a pound that way.
It's the last time I was up there, they were like $8 a pound. But that's
Don't
amazing.
cook the dog. By the way, I sent Kevin Kobasic a link too, so he might come on.
Oh, I hope he shows up. Kevin's awesome.
Kevin was an editor for Marvel. What was that?
She didn't have the right cookware. You have to walk a dog.
Yeah.
Wait,
Kevin was an editor for Marvel in the 90s and an artist on Deathlock. And a friend of ours.
15 minutes.
The comments already, Deanie Epps help eating all that lobster.
Do you need some help eating all that lobster?
You sure?
Believe me, I have plenty of help. The last time I went to Maine, I brought back a pound of lobster meat, and just the meat is $60 a pound. So it was a little bit of a splurge for me. Made myself an open-faced lobster roll. I ate half of it, and the other half got flippy-dooed right off the counter and onto the floor and went to the beagles and the basset hound and the lab. But that's okay.
It's funny. 200 years ago, lobster was a scrap food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Native Americans in Maine. It was a shameful food.
It was also, they actually have like work contracts from the early colonial days where in the contract, if the employer was to provide food, they specifically said no lobster.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's if you were, and as I said, if you were Native American and you were eating lobster, it meant that you were really shitty at hunting. So it's kind of like a shameful thing. Whatever.
Fed it to prisoners during the Revolution, probably. Yeah. 5-second rule. Did she drop a lobster?
It wasn't. I still had plenty of meat left, so it wasn't that tragic. But I was just impressed that the smallest beagle that we have, or rather the smallest dog, managed to, like, the plate was on the counter like this, and she managed to catch it on the corner, so it went like flying off into her reach, and that's why we called her. And that's why we called her Leia, is because she's small but troublesome.
They probably engineered the whole thing.
They engineered a lot. They know what they're doing.
Speaking of tricky animals,
do tell.
The second issue of Gru Meets Tarzan.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about getting that.
Which I was very disappointed that there was no double-page spread like there was in the first issue.
Aw.
It's only a 4-issue mini, but what sold me that first issue and made me put on my pull list was, there's a double-page spread on page 2 and 3 of the first issue that's just wonderful. It's like, one of those Sergio Aragonés spreads that there's 100 things to look at in. Yeah, and I just love those.
I love those.
And this issue was fine. Tom Mandrake art, Thomas Yates art, and of course Sergio Aragonés art. And at the very end of it, Gru crosses over into Tarzan's world. So we got to see cartoon Gru in Tarzan's world, with everybody going, "What the hell is that?" And what's this dog's name? Ruferto? Yeah, Ruferto. Yeah. There's, see if I can get that in there. No glare. Ruferto was there. They're like, I think that's a dog.
I love Roberto.
Yeah.
Oh, you should show that one that you got. Was it this week? The one that you got that was that's printed horizontally rather than.
Yeah, I showed that one last week.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm getting my days mixed up.
Yes, that was based on one of Sergio's dogs.
Yeah,
that he used to have.
That was Echolands by J.H. Williams.
Yes.
Good book. And though I can't they're putting out, what do they call it? The something cut. With every issue, 2 weeks after the issue comes out, they're printing it as it comes off of J.H. Williams' computer in black and white. And I was looking at it going, I don't know that I'd want this in black and white. I don't know what the point of it is in black and white. Kind of like, because the color is really integral to that artwork. So I saw that, and it's $5 for black and white copy of a color comic. So I was like, I don't know if I want to pay $5 for a.
If it were black and white.
What I want is an oversized hardcover edition of it, like the 300 was printed. That I'd get. That was good. Did you get any comics, Daisy?
I did not. I've been somewhat been a little distracted lately.
Yep.
So it's in fact, as I was driving to and from Albany today, I was thinking, God, I should really stop at the comic shop on the way back. But if I had done that, then I wouldn't have been late for this. So. Alas, I chose you guys over comics.
Nah.
I chose to be on talking about comics rather than actually buying comics. And in hindsight, that might have been not, the order of things. But here we are.
Didn't you say you bought some comics a couple weeks ago? Echolands was a good read. I enjoyed that. Like the artwork and design by J.H. Williams was really well done. Because designing a comic to read all the way across is a completely different task than normally the way you do it. With it, a normal comic going left to right, up and down, page by page.
Many years ago, when I went to Dragon Con in Atlanta, and Craig Russell was there at the time.
Yeah,
he had a slideshow presentation of how he was designing pages to lead your eye across the page. Mm-hmm. I probably learned more from that 30-minute slideshow than I learned in 10 years of reading comics before that.
That was probably a good one. Because if you don't know how comics are made, you'll never you don't really know about it. You just know.
Yeah, he opened my eyes to things I hadn't considered before.
Right. Most people just know this comic reads well and this comic reads terribly.
Right.
That's because they're not comic book artists,
Right.
So they don't know what goes into the construction of the pages.
Construction paper.
I just harassed Kevin to come on the show.
Yeah, he just said he's got something to do at 7, so he can't come on.
Prodigal.
Good evening, fellow. He's done with his first day of his new job, or his last end of the week of his new job.
Oh yeah.
And they kept you late. Customer service. Oof. Brutal, Juice. Brutal.
I did it for 18 years, man.
Jared, did my work ever call you?
No.
Not yet.
Nope.
They're supposed to.
But I did just hear Chris Girusso just introduced me to, who is it? Oh, I might be doing some production for the Emerald City Comic Con book that Chris usually does, but he doesn't have the time for this year. So he recommended me for the job. And just the Emerald City Comic Con puts out a book every year of art for people to buy at the con. So. And Chris has been doing the design and production on it for a few years now.
Gotcha.
But he's working on a project with Brian Smitty. So So he'll be there. Great to see Daisy Line joining in. Yeah. He's got Daisy Ann.
Whatever. Works.
It's Daisy Line. It's a combination between Caroline and Daisy. She goes by both names. So sometimes I call her Daisy Line. But usually on this show, I just call her Daisy. Because it's shorter.
My cousins call me Line, so I guess it's open.
Does anybody call you Purple Days?
Does anybody call me what?
Purple Days.
No.
No.
We've never done that so far.
I'll have to go with that. Purple Days.
It would
I
never-
actually heard from an old Marvel editor this week. I don't know if you guys know the name Mark Powers.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
But he was an editor at Marvel in the 2000s all the way. I think he was a Bill Jemas casualty in early 2001. He was one of the guys I've said before. And when Ike took over, and then he eventually hired Bill Jemas. If you weren't a yes man to Bill Jemas, you were eventually fired. That's just the way he ran things. And I think Mark Powers didn't fit into that. Not that Mark is any kind of rebel or anything like that. He's a pretty quiet guy, but I think he just wasn't on board with the Bill Jemas agenda 100%, and they eventually got rid of him. But I actually heard from him this week for the first time in ages. He's got a daughter who's a senior in high school and interested in going to art school. So he was asking me that. She was interested in SUNY Purchase and SUNY Binghamton.
Just to interject, Kevin says he's in the green room, and he said he thinks you have to add him.
Let's see. Oh, there he's down there. He's. I forgot. They put them. But there's Kevin.
I'm down there.
We have a fifth this week for at least a little while. This is.
Give me a hand up.
We got Kevin Kabasic.
Hello.
Who is former Marvel editor, former Deathlock penciler.
Okay.
And has been working
Colossal failure
on storyboards for kids' cartoons for a lot of years now.
Yep, Kevin and I used to stay up till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
5 hours apart, working on those storyboards for the kids' books.
Yes.
So, I mean, I was picking up the slack, and
Yeah.
Kevin was sort of spearheading the whole thing.
Oh my God, you were amazing. You were like you put up with so much shit. It was unbelievable.
What else were I doing? I was sitting by myself in a house in Maine. The absolute best. Kevin had to do these storyboards for some horrible television show, and some of the sets that they come up with, like they had to build sort of a living room set, and it was without exception every time it was the ugliest collection of furniture and items that you've ever seen. One of them, the theme was gold and fur. So every piece of furniture was either faux gold or covered in white fur. It was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah. But every time I tried to delegate that work off to somebody else, I realized like what he was putting me through that I wasn't like getting properly compensated for. I just can't believe people watch shows where these overdressed women are sitting on those couches. Anyway, sorry, I deviated from comics, but it's
So what years were you at Marvel, Kevin?
Let's see. Early '90s, like probably like 90 to 93 or something. Not all that. I mean, not all that long on staff. And then only a year or so after that as a freelancer.
90 to 93, and then
but I was there for I was there when everything was exploding and.
Right. You were there for the boom years in the early 90s. I remember you starting as an intern when you and I bonded over Marillion.
Oh my God! Wow.
Name I haven't heard in a while.
You're like the only other Marillion fan I ever met.
Wow. Well, you know who else is Bill? I think Bill Wiley. But,
Okay.
yeah, I think we're it. I think the three of us.
Another comic book. Yes, that's I remember when Kevin started at Marvel, probably around 1990 as an intern, and he was thrilled to be there. He
Oh my
he was
God.
one of these thrilled to be there because it's funny how people working at Marvel come in like different flavors, and one of the flavors was just thrilled to be there. Like like John Babcock was one of the most just thrilled to be there people. You were a just thrilled to be there person. Because that happens when you're working at Marvel. That's one of the things that can. And eventually you get old and bitter, but at the beginning you're just thrilled to be there.
Yeah. Eventually they beat that out of you, but and then like some people come in like instantly too cool for the room. Yeah, it's like you said, like there's all different varieties.
There's a few different flavors that you see repetition of it. You're like there are the too cool for the room people,
right?
There are the quiet awe people too.
Yeah,
the sort of shy, quiet awe people who you have to like coax out of their shell because they're just like in awe at working at Marvel and they're a little shy to begin with. That was like another category.
I think you guys probably coaxed me out quite a bit in hindsight because I was so intimidated. Like
it's hard to have been in the bullpen for more than like a week and not be coaxed out.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's kind of the only way to survive.
You guys were such instigators. It was hard not to get coaxed out because, like, it was just like the bullpen was just such a riot at that time. Like, you guys were just constantly being entertaining and funny, and there were so many.
Did you start in the Barbie office?
I started in the Punisher office, and then
the Punisher office.
Yeah, and then they moved.
I remember you being in the Punisher office. I just couldn't remember if did you move to the Barbie office?
I did, and that circles back to the whole thing of becoming embittered very quickly. I sort of
So when you start out in the Punisher office and end up in the Barbie office, you can get really bitter.
Yeah, because the Punisher office was punishing your work, and I let it be known that like if something comes up, I wouldn't mind trying out something else. And they were like, how about Barbie? I was like, I'm there. But as it turned out, I was already thoroughly burned out at that point, and I wasn't very good in the Barbie office. I eventually had to face the fact that what I wanted to do was quit and draw, be a freelancer.
You can also start dating the Barbie editor.
No, that was Hildy.
Oh my God, that's right. I thought it was. I was thinking Sarah was the Barbie.
Oh, right.
It's, which type was Daisy and Joe? We'll get Kevin off the dating spot and say which type was. I'm not sure what type I was. I think I was. I'm generally. If I go someplace new, I'm quiet and listen for a while until I get into the flow of things, and then I'm not quiet.
Like once you feel comfortable.
Once I feel comfortable.
So like how long did it take you?
Oh, not that long.
Well, you had all your purchase friends around you, right?
So not at first. I had the only one. Ed Murr got in first. He was my college friend, and he got me the job there.
Okay.
And I was just working part, but I had Ed there, so that's different when one of your friends is there.
Yeah. You guys had
a different thing.
You guys had all your jokes lined up by that point, like
right. And then Bunch came shortly after that. And Bly within a year or two.
It's amazing.
So
it
was different for me.
It was just a continuation of college for you.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it was.
Yep. And it was Erica. It was Sherry Maxwell who was friends with Erica, who was working at Marvel, and the two of them introduced me to the whole bullpen crowd at X Bar one night. So at the point that I came into the scene, I had met. Like I had hung out with everybody for one night, but I mean, when it's Bunch, that's like, you know him. And but I do the same thing. I generally, I know it's hard to imagine, but I generally just clam right the hell up for like a week until I figure out, who's
because I know if I start talking right away, I'm gonna be making social faux pas left and right. That's just the way it goes.
Exactly it. It's why other people's weddings terrify me. Because the last time when I was at my brother's wedding, I mean, keep in mind my brother, he's like a real estate developer, and his wife works. She's the right hand man to this billionaire. I mean, they've got more money than. I mean, I don't see any of it, but I mean, they're like very, very well to do. So everyone there, literally, the only black person was the guy who was running the band, and everybody else was like straight out of Newport, Rhode Island, kind of like it was just not my milieu at all. So at the table where I was sitting, I couldn't say a word because I knew that the next words out of my mouth were going to be like, I cannot wait until I can save a tumor in a jar and put it on a shelf. And these are not the people that you say things like that to. Or like if I ever had a pinky, cut off, I would totally save it in a jar and put it on a shelf. And, like that. I found the coolest deer skeleton in my yard the other day. I'm going to put it together like a puzzle. It's
wouldn't have gone over.
Yeah, those particular things I've never actually said. Well, one of them I did, but it just isn't the sort of thing that people at events like that can relate to. So that's why I always put them up, is because it's always just a matter of seconds.
Did you already have a label printed up for your jar that said it's not a tumor?
Did I do what?
Did you have a label printed up for the jar that says it's not a tumor?
It's not a tumor.
By the way, I just flashed back to a couple of moments with Kevin's boss, Don Daly. Don was the Punisher editor. Yeah. And he was kind of full of shit, but in a good way. He
was entertaining.
He was entertaining.
He was the Dennis Reynolds of the group.
He would always come up, like, we in the bullpen used to work with the editors, and it was our job to do what they needed stuff done. We're the ones who did it in terms of production. So they needed a letter page, paste it up. We'd do it. Then Don would come up and he'd do this. When he wanted to get you to do something, he'd like butter you up. He'd go, you look good. Have you lost weight? That was his line. You look good. Have you lost weight? And I'm just like, you don't have to butter me up. It's my job.
What do you want?
Like, come up with a new line at least. It's like shade.
He's here until 5 o'clock anyway.
That sounds like a cheapo. I mean, who the hell butters you up with compliments?
Yeah.
Where's the cash?
It was strange. I always found that funny. People who like butter you up for you. You're like, you don't have to. And there are people who would also like I hate to make you do this. I'm like, it's my job to do this. It's okay. But the other thing Don would do that I love to watch was when he'd wheel and deal with the comics code. Because he's of course the Punisher editor, so he doesn't want the comics code authority in his Punisher books. So he's like talking to Kevin or whoever his assistant was and going, all right, put an exit wound there and we'll give him that and maybe we'll get this. He'd like put stuff in for the comics code to take out so that he could get other stuff in that he wanted to get in.
Wow, I totally forgot.
Like one of the comics code rules was no exit wounds. So if somebody was getting run through with a sword or shot with a bullet, there could be no exit wounds. So he'd put one in just knowing that they'd take it out so he could get the entrance wound in, or he could get something else, or he'd be in there going, okay, put this in, do this, so we can get that.
Amazing.
And that's why Elektra had such precision over her side piercing.
Right. And that's what you remember when I think it was on the cover of Daredevil 181 when Bullseye is running Elektra through with her own sai, and it's not piercing the fabric of her costume.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they got around that no exit wound by having the costume there cover it up.
Oh, wow. I never realized that's why they did that. Huh.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't realize it till I got at Marvel and found out about the no exit wound rule, and then like it's Daredevil 181, right, where Bullseye is running through Elektra.
That might be when she dies. Yeah.
If it's not that, it's around there.
It took me a long time to realize that, like, if that thing can pierce flesh and bone, it's not going to be stopping at fabric.
Yeah.
unless you have those Reed Richards unstable molecules going on.
Yeah.
That's how Electra's costume stayed on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's dramatic when it doesn't cut through the costume.
I remember a scene from Burns' X-Men when Cyclops is fighting Mastermind in the astral plane, and they're having a sword fight. And Mastermind also pierces Cyclops, and you also don't see the sword coming out.
Yeah. No exit wounds. Yeah, that was the rule. That was a hard and fast rule with the comics code. You could not get around that no exit wounds.
I had completely forgotten about Don's like wheeling and dealing with the comics code. That's him all over though. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, which issues of Deathlock did you draw?
26.
What series was it?
It was the one that Jackson Guys started out with, and then Dennis Cowan had it. Dwayne McDuffie and Greg Wright kicked it off originally. It was like it started off like a 4-issue prestige, and then they went to a continuing series. And I think I came in. I think Walter McDaniel had it for a few issues before me, and then I had it for like a little less than a year, and I finished running it into the ground. So whatever, like 26 till whatever the end was, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something I always wondered about, were Jackson Guys and Butch Guys two different people?
No, same guy.
So okay, I wonder.
Matter of fact, one of the comics I got this week is by Butch Guice.
Oh.
This is Tarna, the Cosmic Gardener. And this is, if you remember, a Heavy Metal. I was buying the Tarna miniseries. Let me go full screen here.
So that's new?
Yeah, this is new. This is from the new. And what's interesting,
I've been buying that.
Well, this is a different one. This is a Heavy Metal Elements. And what Heavy Metal see that red sort of design down the bottom?
Yeah.
That's because this ran serialized in Heavy Metal magazine first. Probably in like 8 pages, but this is a Jackson Guice artwork.
Huh.
Butch Guice.
He's got
so it ran serialized in the magazine, and then they put it out as comics for like one-shot comics and it's only $3, which is good, all their elements. They've even put out some magazine size ones for $3 like this. And so it's kind of a good buy at $3 because there's very few $3 comics left. But this happens before the miniseries.
Okay. So when did it come out in the magazine?
I don't know. I don't get the magazine, but I assume last year.
Okay.
The magazine is like super expensive. It's like a $15 magazine or something.
Yeah, Sleepy Reader was complaining about it in a video a few months ago. Because it's a monthly magazine and it's terribly expensive to buy Heavy Metal monthly at that price. I mean, especially because originally Heavy Metal was not monthly.
And especially the only time I bought Heavy Metal regularly was like the mid-90s. I had a subscription to it for like 4 years because the subscription was so cheap. That was back when magazines were all about their circulation and advertising.
Right.
So if you got a subscription to a magazine, it was like half the price
or less
or if not less. So I think I was getting like a subscription to Heavy Metal, which I don't know. I can't remember if it was 6, 8, or 10 issues a year or whatever it was, but it was like for $15 a year.
Right.
So it was so. I was like, you know what? I'm just getting a subscription.
I picked up those Tarna comics too.
Yeah,
It's
but
like
this
just came out, just
this
gonna-
actually explains who she is. It made the miniseries make a little more sense to me, because in the miniseries she was just kind of like this cosmic Silver Surfer level guardian of the universe or something.
Mhm.
But in this one, it explains that every different alternate reality has a guardian. Some of them are really old, some of them are really young, and she's a young one, so she just goes around the universe guarding things.
So
like in
somebody read
this,
Michael Moorcock, didn't they?
yeah,
As
in
one
this,
does.
yeah, very very much Eternal Hero. Now that you mention it, but like in this one, she just like detected there was some planet in trouble, so she went to the planet to see what the trouble was, found some bad guys, and kicked their ass. But the artwork on the miniseries is really nice. The artwork might actually be better than the artwork on this, which isn't bad.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny that Tarna is popular enough that people wanted to bring her back, because there were no actual Tarna comics. She was created for the movie.
Right.
Right.
Oh, really? Oh, so the limited series came after the movie.
Yeah, this is the first time I think she's.
A long time after the movie.
Yeah, because the movie was like the early '80s, right?
Right. Oh, okay. Well, that'd be
Yeah.
a really fun character to draw.
If current heavy metal were great, the price wouldn't seem bad, but it's mostly underwhelming. Yeah,
Really? Oh, that's too bad.
Do they still have any European artists in heavy metal?
I think so.
Good question. We'll see if Sleepy will tell us. And she's the only one buying it.
Because it's kind of fantastic that heavy metal survived so long in the United States when it hasn't been that relevant for quite a while. And in France, Metal Hurlant was canceled in 1987.
Really?
Magazines of that type just kind of disappeared. Even the mainstream ones, the only ones that are still alive are Le Journal de Spirou and Pif Gadget. And even then, they're not what they used to be. Even all the big series are released as albums immediately, so they don't really bother with the magazines.
Oh, so the albums still sell, but not the magazines. That's what you're saying.
What?
So the albums still sell, but not the magazines.
Yeah, the magazines is a format that kind of lost relevance, because most of they can sell albums in supermarkets in France.
Right.
So as far as newsstand goes.
By the way, Kevin Paulo is from Portugal, so he's our European comics guy here.
Yeah.
Just to give you a little background.
You're bringing us important perspective because I wouldn't know any of this.
Speaking of Butch Geist, if you want to see what I still think is the best Butch Geist ever, it's his cross-gen stuff. Oh my goodness, the name of the book just flew out of my head. The Sherlock Holmes one.
Ruse.
There we go. Butch Geist's Ruse is just a masterwork.
Really?
It is, especially we were just discussing before you got here, Kevin. J.H. Williams has a new comic out called Echolands.
Yeah.
And it's horizontal. It opens horizontally. And he is such a good designer. And he did this horizontal storytelling that he did a pretty good job with so far. He even mentioned how hard it was. But in Ruse, Butch Geist did horizontal storytelling too. In every page was a double page spread with horizontal storytelling. And I have seen that go wrong so many times. This is the only time I've seen it go right. So right is in Butch Geist's Ruse. It is just he just did such good designing and layouts with that. That I've never seen horizontal storytelling done as well since Ruse. So to me, that's kind of what Echolands has to live up to. But even though Echolands is even more horizontal, but so far it has done pretty well. The first issue, I'd say, is he's on his way to being the so already it's the second best horizontal storytelling I've seen. So, but it'll have to, it's really good. But that if you could probably find those ruses in dollar boxes. Pick them up just to look at them, even if you're not going to read them.
They should
Because
make a
they're
really
just
expensive, oversized hardcover of that and call it the Elaborate Ruse.
yeah, Disney's not. Marvel tried to that they published some of the cross-gen stuff, 10 years ago.
Oh wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did buy the Ruse revival or reboot.
Me too. It was mostly forgettable. It seemed to have so Heavy Metal seemed to have 1 or 2 Euro strips in it, but mostly original material.
Yeah, there are probably some short stories.
See, I don't even really consider Jimmy Corrigan horizontal storytelling, only because it's more like a comic strip, which is horizontal storytelling, but it's not a comic book kind of thing. But yeah, I know what you mean. You could count Jimmy Corrigan as horizontal storytelling. After having it for 10 years, I finally made it all the way through the Jimmy Corrigan book by treating it like a comic strip. I'd read a couple of pages a day.
Mm-hmm. How depressed were you afterwards?
I wasn't that depressed reading it a couple pages a day. Yeah. That was just it. But I would say Jimmy Corrigan has more in common with Sunday strips than it does with comic books in terms of horizontal layout.
Formatting wise, yeah.
Formatting, yeah.
No, I couldn't make it past page 4 in Jimmy Corrigan, and I got rid of the book. I think I don't get depressing stories. Don't make me depressed. They make me angry because I'm questioning the motive, the character's motives, and it was easily fixable. Just go to the red light district. Pay somebody to cheer you up.
It was kind of nutty.
Although, it seems like that in that era, there were so many kind of comics on the artsier side that were all about just on, I don't know what to call it, ennui, or just there was kind of a real movement towards comics where very little was happening. Maybe that's just the way I'm remembering it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know which era was Jimmy Corrigan. I'm trying to remember. 2000. When did it come out? Early 2000s.
I don't remember anymore.
It's on my shelf somewhere. Where is it? Hold on.
I don't remember. I think Wizard still listed it in the price guide. So yeah.
Jimmy Corrigan. Oh, he makes it impossible to find the indicia with the year on it in these books because there's so much text everywhere.
Clever for his own good.
It's like, where's the year? It's like, oh my goodness, general instructions, ease of use. He's got instructions on how to turn the book into a something. Yeah, Sleepy Reader says very early 2000s. I think so too.
Was it? God, I thought it was 90s. I guess I'm wrong. I probably everything I just said was.
You're thinking of the autobiographical era, which was probably mid to late 90s.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
And I was a big fan of Cross Gen when the stuff was coming out. There's a few series in it that I really liked.
Jimmy Corrigan started in 1995.
95. Well, okay. Well, yeah. Whenever this book came out was when I first heard of it. Yeah, because Jeff Sebesta, who's been on this show before, was living in Austin in the 90s, and I think him and a lot of he knows him and a lot of because a lot of them came out of Austin. It seems I didn't know that. Because he's mentioned them before.
Martin Wagner in Austin too.
Yeah. So there was a thriving little indie scene in Austin in the 90s.
Right.
That Jimmy Corrigan. Here it is. Look, right on the front it says Guardian First Book Award 2001. So this book at least came out in 2001. Was it serialized somewhere first? Right?
Yeah, I was just on Google. It said it was serialized in a local Chicago newspaper.
Okay.
Oh, was it? I didn't know that.
It wasn't the Tribune or anything huge, but it was a smaller local paper, and then they compiled them.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, that seems to be the general opinion. Jimmy
Yes.
Corrigan was too depressing for me. I just wanted to get that. I got this book probably in the early 2000s, and I finally made it all the way through it this year. And it took me 6 to
20 years
8
in the
months
making.
to make it through it.
Wow.
You talk about depressing comics. I thought that Jimmy Corrigan was like Mr. Rogers in comparison to some of the stuff that Julie Doucette did.
I've only read a little of her stuff here and there.
I can't do it. That art style just is too jarring for me. I don't like it.
Yeah, I remember Austin was famous for its Indian punk rock scene in the 90s.
And film.
I never
also.
knew it had a comic scene. Never knew that. That was news to me.
There's a lot going on there.
Austin is currently the home of the United States Formula One Grand Prix.
Is that right?
Yep. They did a European type circuit just for Formula One there, and none of the American championships won a race there.
Kevin did his first Comic-Con in a lot of years this past weekend, too. How was that?
It was all right. It was kind of my first one ever, right? I tabled it at New York
Hudson
Comic-Con.
Valley Comic-Con, right?
Yeah, just like a little tiny one. I'm just starting to get my feet wet, you know. But
Yeah.
I brought some prints and did some commissions, and it was a really nice experience. So I'm encouraged. If it was a disaster, I probably would never try again. But like, it was just.
Was Fred Hembeck at that one?
I'm sorry.
Was Fred Hembeck at that one?
Did you say Hembeck?
Yeah, Hembeck.
No.
I'm just curious because I think I remember something back in my mind. He used to go to the Hudson Valley Comic Con quite a bit.
Yeah, he lives in the Hudson Valley, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, okay. You know who was there?
If he
Was
showed up.
Elliot Brown was there, which I wasn't expecting.
Oh, Elliot Brown.
Yeah. We used to work together on Picture Armory, so that was awesome. He was like
Elliot Brown worked at Marvel, and he
They dismantled these.
was he in? Where did he start out? Was he a production guy?
I want to say he was a photostat guy originally.
He may have been in the bullpen, but in the photostat room. But eventually, he's the one who did all those mechanical drawings of stuff.
Yeah,
so he did a lot of stuff with Kevin in the Punisher office for those. What is it, Punisher Armory?
Punisher Armory. Like we started like he was doing a little feature in the back, where like in the back of the issue there'd be like some kind of a schematic of one of the Punisher's guns with and like a little text piece. And he was really good at it. And eventually that turned into a book. I think it ran for like 10 issues or something. And then, but also he was the guy who was always responsible for the photo stuff, for like the photo covers in the 80s. You know,
right.
Like just about any time you saw like a photo cover in Marvel, or you saw like some kind of goofy thing, on the Bullpen Bulletins page,
Fumetti.
behind the scenes, the Fumettis, yeah, all that kind of stuff. Any of that was always Elliot. He's always been like a tech head, and in fact, I credit him for inventing the selfie stick, because I have a photo that he took of us in the Punisher office, and he's got this. He came in with this insane contraption rigged up, with his camera on a pole and like a trigger that he had rigged up by hand, and he stuck it out the window of our 10th floor office, and took a picture facing back in, and that was so to this day I maintain he should have been a millionaire for that, but it didn't happen.
Did you also work on the Iron Manual as well?
That sounds like something he probably would have done.
I'm just curious because it was very similar to that Punisher Armory comic.
Yeah. Pretty much anytime you saw like a technical breakdown of the Baxter Building or whatever, it was they would always get Elliot to do that stuff.
I remember when I was a kid, I saw a giant. It may have been a Treasury comic, I'm not sure, but somebody did a giant mock-up of the Baxter Building, which showed all the the layouts. It was a cutaway drawing. I loved that stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah. He's just amazing, right? And he's got
Elliot.
So much.
Elliot Brown also has a website. If you're interested in pictures of like Marvel in the 80s and into the 90s, early 90s at least, he took pictures in the 80s around the building and of people working there, the art. So, and he's got it up on his website. Look up, I think he spells Elliot with one T or one L. It's an odd way, but look up Elliot Brown And you can find his website and see some old Marvel pictures.
Yeah, I think
matter of fact, he has some Marvel pictures that I get fascinated with because I took a bunch of pictures at Marvel too in the 90s.
Right.
There was one period in like 92 when we moved down to the we were on the 10th floor of 387 Park Avenue South, all through most of all through the 90s, I think it was. But like in 92, they decided to redo the 10th floor. So we all had to go down to the 4th floor, and they set up cramped offices there so they could refurbish the 10th floor, and then we moved all back up there. And for some reason, I never took any pictures down on the 4th floor. But one day, Elliot Brown did, and he has them posted on his website. So sometimes I'm just like a lot of times, like my memories are based on the photos I took. Like occasionally, like I'll post photos on Facebook, and somebody say, "Oh, your memory is much better than mine." And I'm like, "No, it's not. I wrote down when I took the photo and who was in it." And you know how memories can get based. If you see a photo all the time, your memory of the event gets based on that photo eventually.
Yeah.
So it's like this whole time on the 4th floor, I didn't have any photos. So my memory of it was completely different. And when I saw the photos, I was like, oh, that's what, and I'm even in one or two of them. And I'm going, oh, that's what it was. Sometimes I just go, for some reason, those are more nostalgic to me than my photos that I took.
Right.
Because it's kind of a lost part of my memory.
My memories of the 90s are so much clearer thanks to Jared's photo taking.
Yeah.
Because he was the only one who was sober back then. And I mean, which sounds like a joke, but I mean it. It's that there are so many things where I'm like,
literally none of us have a memory of it.
there's a photo of I think it's Jared and I and Christina. I have no memory of it. No.
Well, random photos you wouldn't have memories of anyway. It's like just because I would take a lot of candids and kind of random photos. So it's like you wouldn't,
right.
That wouldn't stick in your memory if you were the person getting the photo taken of you. That's just the way our memory, there was no reason to remember that. Another comic I got this week.
Random.
I think this is another Austin guy that Jeff Sebesta said he knew. Xander Cannon's Kaiju Max, season 6, issue 3.
He may have lived in Austin years ago, but he lives in Minneapolis now.
Yeah, and I think he was I think he may have been a '90s Austin guy or something. Or maybe, or Jeff said he went into. Jeff said he liked that Minneapolis con, so maybe he knows him from there.
Could be.
But yeah, have you ever read Kaiju Max, Kevin?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it? It's
I'm only just getting back into comics thanks to you.
Thanks to my badgering and telling him he should read some comics if he's going to call himself a comics fan.
If I'm going to start arguments on the internet, I better read some.
I have so many. You see it all the time. When people are like, comics are not as good as they used to be. I hate modern comics. I like comics that were back in year X. I'm always like, what's the last comic you read? I haven't read a comic since 1998. I'm like, well, then how do you know current? You haven't read comics in a generation, and you're saying they're all bad?
Comics aren't meant to be read. They're meant to be complained about. Like every time there's Batman changes his costume or something, we're all supposed to get on Facebook and bitch about it.
And the people who say that they got fed up with Marvel and DC at a certain age, and just never made the leap to being actual comics fans.
Right.
Yeah,
the ones that complain about the price of today's comics and think that they would be cheaper if they went back to newsprint when they will not do it.
No, trust me, Marvel prints on the cheapest paper they can get. Have you picked up a Marvel comic? But it's funny. Daisy actually got Bunch to read this one.
Wow.
because it's right up his, or maybe it was coincidence. I don't know. Because this is right up his alley. Because it's a bunch of giant monsters in prison, and the prison guards are humans in giant robot suits. And I remember probably Bunch didn't start reading it till a couple of years ago, and he immediately told me, like, because I'm not a giant monster fan, so I don't get all the giant monster references. But Bunch was just like, oh my goodness, it's loaded with monster movie references, and he was telling me some of them. I was like, oh, okay. I knew it had to be loaded with references. I just don't get them.
That's that's really tailored for him.
Yeah.
I gotta bail, sadly, but thank you for the invite.
Okay, we'll have you in another time.
Right on. Very nice to see you guys.
We'll catch you later.
Bye.
Back to our 4 across.
Gus made a comment. There's good things. Cell phones had no cameras in the 90s. If there were cell phone cameras back in the 80s, it would not
all the cocaine would have been documented.
All the stupid stuff we did in high school and college would have been documented.
You know, it's weird. If cell phones and the cameras all existed back then, I've never even
cameras existed.
Yeah.
No, but you know what I mean, like Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've never even seen cocaine in the wild. I still think I would have wound up in jail for completely different things. Because I did stuff like I would steal stop signs, that kind of thing.
Who hasn't?
I know somebody who ended up in jail for that. Well, not in jail. They ended up. It was one day. Where was it? As a matter of fact, it was my first school. I went to 2 colleges. I went to Sullivan County and then SUNY Purchase. And only one person who I knew at my first school also transferred to my second school. This guy named Chris. And I think I was hanging out with him one day, and he got like something in the mail that he kind of opened up in front of me. He opened up, looked at, and it was like something from Sullivan County. I was like, what? You're getting mail from? And it was like an official document from the county, not like a school doc. I was like, what the heck is that? It was his expunged record. Because he, when he was a freshman, he and his buddy, and he was not one to get into trouble anyway. It was, his buddies who got him. He and his buddies were walking home from the bar one night drunk, and it was something like a stop sign. Something was under construction, and they stole something like a stop, whatever stupid thing it was, a stop sign, a yield sign, something to do with some construction sign. And as they were walking with it, woo, they got arrested. And if they kept clean for they knew it was just stupid college kids. If they didn't get into trouble for 2 years, their record would be expunged. So it turns out they mail your record to you. So that's what it was. They mailed his record to him.
When I went to college, the town police were notorious about waiting for kids to get drunk. And they had to walk back up a hill to get to campus, and they were just waiting on them like vultures. And me and a friend of mine, his name was Tom Sawyer. That was his real name. Walking back to campus one night, neither one of us had drank anything. And this cop just stops us both, and he wants to see your ID. And he asked him even before he pulls his ID out, said, "What's your name?" And Tom's like, "It's Tom Sawyer." And the cop's like, "Yeah, right." And he looked really, it is. Interesting. He said, "Yeah, I get that all the time, man." Yeah.
And our next comic for the week has to be the most boring issue of Spawn so far. Which, once again, I'm getting because it's like the last of the $2.99 comics. As long as it's $2.99, I'm still gonna get it. But how can Todd McFarlane write 321 issues and not know how to write? And
He didn't write
issue was
320 issues.
I could have told you that 320 issues ago.
Yeah, but you think he would get some skill over time?
Todd didn't write anything between like issue 30 and 300.
No, he wrote under a pseudonym.
Was that pseudonym Brian Michael Bendis?
I don't remember. There was some pseudonym he wrote, like somewhere in like I tried an issue. I was like, you know what? I haven't tried an issue of Spawn in 20 years. So I pulled out an issue of Spawn. Maybe it was 2010.
Brian Hiberlin wrote a lot of Spawn.
But anyway, whoever the writer was, I didn't recognize his name. And the art was terrible, and the writing was god awful terrible, and the writing and the art being bad made it unreadable. And then it was like 6 months later I found out that was Todd McFarlane writing under a pen name.
What does it say about you that you use a pen name on your own book?
I don't know. I did he think people would go, wow, this is a really good but this book was filled with explanations and argument, because the plot was, I don't know what happened in issue 300 because I didn't buy issue 300. I started buying it, I don't know, 6-7 issues ago. And I guess Spawn has got Spawn Island, which is his headquarters.
Island. How does he get to the island in his Spawn copter?
I guess so. But he's got these people who are working with him at Spawn Island. He was just trying to kick them all out. That's how the first like quarter of this issue was him trying to kick out the people he brought to Spawn Island to help him. The one guy's like, you kidnapped me and brought me here. Now you want to kick me? And he wants to kick them out for security reasons.
What?
Because too many people have been making it to Spawn Island lately, and it's probably and everybody on it's a security risk now. I'm like, what? That makes no sense.
So it's like Gilligan's Island. A bunch of people get to the island, but Spawn never leaves.
And then the Trotters show up 2 weeks later.
we switch from that to page after page of Spawn tailing this guy until he finally confronts him. And just as Spawn's about to leave, he finds some woman he keeps as a sex slave downstairs. And they have to give us like 2 pages of this guy like flashing back to. It's like all you have to do is say sex slave, and we get it. You don't have to show terrible things that have happened to her. We know he's a terrible guy. But no, we get 2 pages. We get 2 pages of that and Spawn commenting on it. It's just like the no action. A Spawn issue with no action and tons of Todd McFarlane writing Spawn's internal dialogue. That's a recipe for a bad comic.
Oh, but hold me back.
Only $2.99, so you don't feel ripped off.
That's $3 you're never going to get back, Jared.
Hey, it beats $8 I'm never going to get back, okay? There's plenty of $8 crappy comics out there.
Oh, but by the end of the year, it'll be $36. Yep.
But I'm okay with that, you know? For some reason, I'm okay with spending $3 on a crappy comic. I don't know why.
And at $36, you can buy about 50 sliders at White Castle.
Oh, geez, no thank you. I'll wreck my stomach.
I wish there was White Castle around here. You can get them in the grocery store, but there's no White Castle restaurants around here.
Not that I particularly dislike White Castle, but I'm not a fan.
There's no White Castle.
It's a novelty. It's like something different every once in a while.
I imagine it's something to do that's cool when you're, in college or high school or in your 20s. Going down a dozen White Castle burgers.
Never eaten there.
There's no reason to. The only reason to eat there is to say you've eaten there and then move on with life.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people. I mean, even at Marvel, people would go on, like the guys would go on the pilgrimage every so often to White Castle, and then they'd come back with this hodgepodge of food. They'd have like fried clams. And
What killed me at Marvel is here we are. We're working in Midtown Manhattan. There are delis and restaurants everywhere. Everywhere. And they cater to the lunch crowd. You can go in and get Angels still made some of the best sandwiches I've ever had.
Oh, Angel sandwiches. Oh, I love
They were really good.
They were so good.
And the way you could tell if a place was good is you get a bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll in the morning. If they can't do a bacon, egg, and cheese on the roll, don't go there.
Yep.
But there's a few people in the bullpen who would go down to McDonald's every day. And I'd be like, what?
Yeah, why would you do that in Manhattan?
I don't know.
I would guess.
It's not like everything else was. They would spend as much as I'd spend on a sandwich. A sandwich at Angels was $7, the one I'd get. They'd go to McDonald's and spend the same amount.
Gotcha.
And get about the same amount of food.
Yeah.
It's delis load everything up. I mean, they always put too much meat in all the stuff that they have.
Yeah.
I'd only been to Manhattan once, but I figured out within 15 minutes of being there, even if it took that long, it's like you could go to a different restaurant every day for the rest of your life and not even go through 10% of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd go to the I used to like to keep my if I were to go out for lunch like I did a lot in the early 90s, I'd keep it to under $10. That's what your aim is. Anything over $10 would be expensive.
Right.
So you want to keep it under. And that's how much they'd spend at McDonald's. So I'd be like, what? Get a slice. That's cheaper.
For $1.75.
Right.
Remember being back in college, we'd be like up at like 2 a.m. watching TV, and you'd see like a Pizza Hut commercial would come on.
Mm-hmm.
And between 10 people, we'd have like $3.75.
Yeah.
Not even enough to buy a whole pizza. It was frustrating.
And the next comic I got this week, it turns out, is the last issue. Geiger #6, which is extra big and extra expensive. I think it was a $5 comic. Yeah, $5 comic, but I think it was 40 pages. But it turns out this is the end of Geiger Volume 1 and the end of Geiger I thought it was an ongoing. I just don't know when I buy these series if they're ongoing or miniseries anymore.
They never put it in the indicia.
No, they don't put it in the indicia. They don't put it. Sometimes you can see it in the solicitations, but not you. It just says Geiger #6.
Gotcha.
But he's going to do other. There's going to be a Geiger 80-page giant, which is coming out on sale November 24th. And this issue also introduces a character called Junkyard Joe. And I think the next sort of mini series in this world is going to be Junkyard Joe. Once again, we're back to Michael Moorcock and the Internal Hero, because for some reason it didn't happen until this issue. He established sort of a timeline. It even shows it here. The unnamed. See this timeline here? We've got 1776. Redcoat becomes immortal. 1864, the Northerner begins his hunt. 1944, the monster is made. 1972, Junkyard Joe comes online. This is down here. Throughout history, unlikely and strange heroes have risen and fallen. These men and women are a mystery. Their identities and lives a secret. So they are the unnamed fighting the unknown war. So I guess it turns out that Geiger is just one of the unnamed fighting the unknown war. And now we're going to get more series of these guys. And the next one's going to be Junkyard Joe. Okay, I can get with that. Why not?
So if you work on the circulation department for that book, would that make you a Geiger counter?
Ha 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 ha! I was actually pleasantly surprised with the produce quality in Manhattan. Oh yeah, they have that shipped in locally every day. If there are good farm.
Since a lot of people don't realize that 15 miles away from Manhattan, you have farm country.
Oh yeah,
and lots of it.
Yeah, New York State's got a lot of farms.
Yep, New York, New Jersey, both.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, not to mention.
Yeah, pretty most of the East Coast does actually.
Who wants to do a
R&R?
Rip Read
RNS
and Slab. Let's see, which one should we? All right, we'll start with that one. This is the game we play, where I give you 3 comics. One you keep to read, one you have to slab, and one you have to rip up. Let me share my screen. And I figured out why it wasn't sharing right last. There we go. Let me flip back to here.
Oh,
this is our DC romance from, I think, 1973, which I didn't realize there were this many romance books in 1973.
Yeah.
But we got heartthrobs, girls love, and girls romance.
Wait, is girls love like girls loving girls, or is that just girls?
I doubt it. These are all romance magazines aimed at girls.
Apostrophe after S, so it's possessive. Although that could be. Yeah.
I don't think there was anything edgy at all in any of these.
No.
But we'd have to read them to find out.
Yeah, what are the plots of them? I can't.
Is she going to go for the doctor or the hip guy? I believe this girl is accusing this other girl of something.
Jack Hughes.
And this girl obviously isn't behaving like she should be, because this guy seems to be upset at her, and she's dressed like in some hippie fashion. So,
oh well, you don't want to do that.
Or what DC editors in 1972 thought was hippie fashion.
So we have nothing to base this particular one on, but these 3 covers.
Wow, that's a tough decision.
It is, but I already know which ones I'll do.
What do you got?
I'm gonna slab the far right one just for the tears on the outfit. I'm gonna light the doctor one on fire just because I hate his hairdo, and and the middle one
You'll read and see why that girl is yelling at this other girl.
I agree with her order, but for different reasons.
Oh, okay. What are your reasons?
I'd slab the one on the right, Girls Romances, is because I think it's got the best cover art.
Mm-hmm.
I would read the one in the middle because it seems like it's actually may have a story to it where one person accuses the other one. And we'll rip the other one up because I hate that god-awful background and that the guy's wearing a bright yellow shirt.
He finally gets to rip some yellow.
Yeah, I also rip the one on the left, but I slab the middle and read the right. I want to know what is their awful secret.
Wow. That's a good point. I missed out on that one.
And the middle one kind of looks like a piece of pop art.
Yeah, I think I'd slab the middle one too. I'd end up slabbing the middle one and reading the girls' romances. And I think all of us are tearing up heartthrobs. And I think the logo and the cover it's got the worst logo.
Mm-hmm.
And the logo on the left,
right, that background color is terrible.
Yeah, the logo on the left almost looks like a military logo you expect to see in a war book.
Yeah, it's not landing with me.
Right. But
the only way that I keep the one on the far left is if what they're actually talking about is how the dude in the yellow is complaining that he thought that the doctor was gay, and now he's grabbing a chick. Like our relationship meant nothing to you.
What does the guy in yellow think he's going to offer. I mean, he doesn't even know how to tie a ascot.
Right. It is very Scooby-Doo Fred.
Yeah, I thought that was the reason that he didn't button up his shirt, because he was tying an ascot.
He's too busy trying to be Leif Garrett, I guess.
Did Leif Garrett wear an ascot?
I have no idea.
I honestly have no idea. Now, the cover on the right, you have to wait for the graphic to disappear. What is he pointing at with his right hand?
He's just going, "Hey."
Yeah, that's just gesticulating. Look here, you.
Maybe that's why she's trying to get away from it.
I imagine.
But I have to say, at least all of these covers, because it was 1973, tell a story.
It's a good point.
It beats them just standing there. You know, if you're going to give me a romance magazine, you better tell me a story.
But you notice there's no background on any of those covers?
No, I didn't notice. Yeah, you're right.
Well, isn't one of the guys peeking up behind a tree?
Yeah, but that wasn't the background. That was
not the background there.
Fair enough.
There were no trees in the background.
Nice.
And another comic I got this week is one my name's in. Monster Kill Squad #1.
Ooh.
By someone was waiting for the Christos Gage, Tomas Giurello, and Diego Rodriguez. The art, and I think someone, I forget who it was. Was it Mind the Comics? Was waiting to see the Tomas Giurello one, and the art is nice.
He worked on some Conan stuff for Dark Horse.
It's got I think this may be the first stuff I've read by him. There's a little Medusa for you.
Oh. So what's the plot with that one? I may have asked that before.
The plot is they're a monster fighting squad who, for some reason, it takes place in our world, but they haven't really explained it, but they mentioned that a few years ago somehow monsters started infiltrating the real world.
Ah.
And they're very tough. So there's this special squad who's there to handle the monsters. And in this one, there's the clown. And they have to do research on all these monsters, too, because they have certain types of monsters have certain powers. Like this clown that is a monster isn't actually a clown. It's some sort of other monster that becomes a clown in our minds because we find it horrible.
Isn't that pretty much the plot of It?
Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of them, and there's a squad that fights them. And there's a lot of sort of research and monster babble in it, too.
Sounds like Pacific Rim without the giant robots.
But it was I like this art, I have to say. And there's something I had to do. Just to give you a little peek behind the scenes, this woman right here, where is she? Was originally a blonde, but then I think I think the colorist and the artist were talking, and they decided to make her a platinum blonde. But she was blonde on the cover. So it's like at the last minute, they were like, "Can you make her platinum blonde?" So I had to desaturate her hair. Which
How
was
much
easy
did she
enough.
pay you?
She didn't pay me at all.
Cheapest highlights job that you can get there.
Yeah. But luckily that was easy to do. Sometimes they ask you to do impossible things at the last minute, and you have to tell them they're impossible. That's never any fun.
Yeah.
There we go. Her awful secret was she isn't a real blonde, even though he was talking about those romance covers. That applies in this case.
Just leave the comment up long enough, you can apply to a lot of different things. The question is Gore Vidal a real blonde?
Does the carpet match the drapes?
Slappy,
The awful
slappy.
secret. Gore Vidal does laser.
Well, and this one may have been my favorite of the bad idea comics so far. Pirate Queen.
Ooh, that looks like something I'd like.
And it's by Peter Milligan, Adam Polina, and Tamara Bonvillain. Do you remember Adam Polina? Were you from Marvel?
I remember that name.
Daisy?
The name sounds familiar.
He used to hang out in the bullpen. He was one of the sort of X-Men artists in the mid-90s.
He did X-Force.
I'm sure I'd know him if I saw him.
Jeff was writing in Polina. Polina was that type of art style that I was not into at the time, but now I'm willing to give it a go.
Well, his art style is very different now. It's much more sort of fantasy illustration. He kind of blended in with the rest of the mid-90s X-Men guys then. And Daisy, you'd remember him for having the tightest pants in the mid-90s.
I kind of would remember him for that. Hold on.
I actually think that Joe Madureira was the superstar, but to me, Adam Polina had a much broader range of expressions and body language.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Of course, Joe Madureira to me was always that guy that I'd never understood why he was so popular.
He was one of the first popular manga influenced guys too. That's all I could figure.
Oh,
you gotta put the dogs out.
I ordered Pirate Queen. She's glad to walk the plank for. Yeah.
Since you brought it up,
Can we get a Tony Millionaire back cover?
Since you brought it up, who's the first artist you can think of in comics that seems manga influenced?
What was that? I can't hear you over the dogs.
Since you brought it up, who's the first American comics artist you can think of that seem to be manga influenced?
Well, Joe Madureira was the first popular one.
I mean, just in general, whether it's popular or not.
In general, all those guys.
I really.
As a matter of fact, hold on.
Yeah, who was it?
I think it's time for another. I've got just the perfect thing for this.
Thanks.
Come on. There we go. I got a First Comics 1986.
I got a Dynamo Joe.
Don't kill me.
I got it.
Sorry, guys.
You know, Daisy, you could make a Twitch show out of your home life.
I'm really sorry about the chaos. The beagle knocked over all the lobster shells.
Speaking of Dynamo Joe, there we go. Dynamo Joe #1, Shatter #1, and First Adventures #1. And this was when a lot of sort of manga and when dogs go wild. This is when these are the first manga influenced guys I remember. Is when First Comics, I think it was mainly started publishing stuff like Dynamo Joe.
Mm-hmm. They did put out a couple of manga themselves, didn't they?
Yeah. They put out Kamui, or was that Eclipse? Those were the first manga I read. Kamui and Mai the Psychic Girl.
Oh, wow. There's a title I haven't heard of in a while.
I think the first manga to get an ongoing in the US was Barefoot Gen.
Okay.
And that was Eclipse. That was Eclipse.
But this was Dynamo Joe. This is one of the first ones I remember. Uh-oh. Terrence has something for us. He's ripping Dynamo Joe, reading First Adventures, and slamming Shatter because he's read it.
Okay.
Kamui and Mai were Eclipse. Okay. I still have my Kamuis, but my Mai's are in France. I sold those on eBay one
I'm
day.
going to rip up Shatter because I know it's not very good.
Yeah.
The other two are kind of a toss-up. I would probably maybe read Dynamo Joe because I don't know any better, and it's got a giant robot. And First Adventures, just the art just looks really generic, so I'd probably end up ripping that one.
Yeah, I think. See, I disagree with you that Shatter isn't any good. Not that I'm saying it's good, but there's a certain historical. I like it as a historical art. Oh, do we have someone?
Because
well, I like the historical nature of doing a comic before anti-aliasing was even invented.
I mean, that has early Mac written all over it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally. Shatter. I like Shatter.
Yeah,
and I like that Shatter cover.
Mike Signs only got famous because of that gimmick.
Yeah, 100%. And famous might be a little bit of a stretch, but yeah.
Well, it did do Iron Man Crash.
Right.
And that sold well enough to get licensed all over the world.
I
think I'm going to slab Shatter, read Dynamo Joe, and rip up First Adventures. Though I think I read both Dynamo Joe and I may have read both of those in the 80s and don't even remember them, but I think I read Shatter a little in the 80s and don't remember it either. It'd be like reading them all for the first time.
I remember reading an old comic from that era that's called Cyber 7.
Cyber 7.
Cyber 7, that was a manga influence thing back in the day. Giant robot, based giant backs. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I remember reading it.
I am going to rip Shatter.
Rip Shatter.
Yeah, I'm going to read Dynamo Joe because I want to know what the hell that cat thing is. And I'm going to slab First Adventures because it's an artifact of over-the-top movement.
Rip Shatter would be a great name for a pulp detective.
It's funny. I was Eric Larson said something about coloring in the 90s on Twitter this week that I corrected him on, but of course he doesn't know or care. When he said something about Marvel's like 90s coloring was so bad they had to do the infamous Whisper on the cover. Oh yeah. There she is right there. I used to buy Whisper, and like 10 years ago, I tried to reread Whisper and couldn't make it through 2 issues. I was just like, holy cow, this is bad. Why am I reading this? And I have 30 issues of it on my shelf that I bought in the 80s because I used to buy it. And I'm like, wow. I remember it being kind of middle of the road, but I couldn't even make it through a couple of issues.
Yeah, but it looks like the type of thing that you look at it and you can tell that it's a product of its time.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad when it came out because it was what the people who read it needed when it came out. Yeah. But nowadays
it wasn't at least it wasn't Marvel and DC. It is horrible. I couldn't make it through it. I was just like, when I tried to read it 10 years, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. But anyway, Eric Larson was saying about Marvel's coloring in the 90s. The reason they had to use all those gradients was because all the edges of stuff were stair-stepped. And I'm like, no, there was anti-aliasing in the mid-90s. You can't do gradients without it.
The reason there was so many number 1.
Yeah, the reason there were so many like plastic gradients was because the editors liked it. But he had to do gradients without anti-aliasing. He had to draw in all those little individual dots.
Oh God.
So that's kind of why I like, because you know what it is? I once wrote a blog, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. In the early 2000s, this photographer got famous for a brief time. I forget her name, but it was during the first days of digital photography. I had gotten my first digital camera too, even, but like no professionals had digital cameras until like the end of the aughts. If you were shooting digital in like 2003, you were shooting with a 3 megapixel camera. And that no professional was shooting with a 3 megapixel camera. But of course there became, because now normal people could shoot with digital cameras and do these sort of voyeur shots of their own life. That's what she became briefly famous for. I wish somewhere around here I still have the book, but I can't remember what it's named. And she even got a book deal, so she had to buy that. And I was and somewhere around 2010, I wrote a blog about this book because I realized that no one was ever going to make photographs like this again, because there were 3 megabyte photographs. So they were low res. They were under resolution. So you had to kind of do sort of creative things because you didn't have enough resolution to do something that looked professional. And Shatter reminds me of that. There will never be a book like Shatter again that looks like Shatter. Because he had to do that all before anti-aliasing was standard.
It's almost like a paint or numbers thing that's interpolated up 1,000 times.
Right. Because what anti-aliasing is, it's automatic smoothing, automatic blending together of colors. If you like zoom in on the edge of something, like on a computer, you see, like, if something's like solid green and it's anti-aliased, when you go to the edge, you can see all the different values of green along the edge. And if you make a gradient, a computer gradient, and you zoom in on it, you can see all the little values of green across the gradient. And that he didn't have that. He had to lay down each individual pixel of color. So if he wanted to make a gradient, he had to lay down a line of dark green, a line of dark green, a line of dark green, a line of medium green, a line of medium green. It didn't happen automatically. So that's why it looks low resolution, but it's really that there's no anti-alien. And no one's ever going to make a comic again like that. That just doesn't, the technology, and to think it was just like a brief period of time, much like this photo book, there was only a brief period of time where you could make art photos with a 3 meg camera. That's gone now, never to be repeated. So I kind of find that interesting about Shatter and about this, photo book.
I still have a copy of, was it Batman Digital Justice?
Yeah. I can't. I think there was anti-aliasing by that time, but I'm not 100% sure.
It was a little more advanced, but it still wasn't anything like not even close to what we have now.
Gore Vidal picked up the latest Lazarus, which came out last month, I think, only to find the next year. Yeah, well, that's kind of what they decided to do with it. It was going to be a big square-bound book that came out like 3 or 4, or 2 or 3 times a year. That's kind of why I, dropped it from my pull list. I just wasn't interested in it. It's not how many times a year it comes out. That really doesn't bother me, because I've had books that come out once every 3 years on my pull list.
I mean, the title Lazarus, you'd think it'd come out like once every 50 years or something.
Whenever it's reborn. And the other bad idea book that came out this week is The Lot number 3 of 4.
I've been getting that one too.
I think I enjoyed this issue the most. It moved the quick, the kind, like the first 2 issues, there was so much setup and world building and backstory that this issue was all about what's happening right now.
So it
was kind of nice.
The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah. This backup story was a little weird. Monster in My Life. This one didn't quite grab me as much as a lot of the other backup stories. This backup story is by Peter Milligan and Sarah Barini, with Dave Sharp on letters. But it was about this young high school girl whose brother turns into a monster.
As one does.
Okay.
I was just going to say that.
What was that?
Said as one does at that age.
I think that was definitely a theme that was going through it, because they mentioned puberty and adolescence more than once. But that one was okay. I think Pirate Queen was my favorite out of the three.
I'm gonna have to pick that one up.
Talk about freaking expensive comics. Let's see. The lot is $6. They're a little bit bigger than most comics too.
That's the price is a lot.
Yes, $7 for Monster Kill Squad, and $8 for Pirate Queen. So it's like, woo! But the good thing is the backups. The good thing is there are backup stories. You get anywhere from 20 to 25 pages the main story and a backup story. Like I think Monster Kill Squad and Pirate Queen might be 40 pages. I don't know, or was that just the first issue? But either way, you get a lot for your money, and the backup stories are actually good. That I appreciate about them. They put a lot of comics, the backup story, Marvel and DC comics, let's call them out. The backup stories are usually crap.
Yeah.
Backup stories are actually good in these ones.
Spot varnish.
The varnish makes them uber spec books. Of course, whoever puts the varnish on is doing a great job. All the kids love varnish.
They should do a reprint of the old pulp novels called Varney the Vampire. He has spot varnish on it.
What's funny is I mentioned at the beginning of the show, usually the deadlines for getting the books to the printer are on Tuesdays. We have to get to whatever Tuesday it is of the month. It seems that they've been getting them all out on one day of the month. We have to get the books to the printer on Tuesday night and get them approved, and then they print, and we send the covers and the interiors differently. Which is how Marvel and DC and Image save money when they have self-covered books. It's called when the cover stock is the same is the same as the interior stock. That saves them money because, like I said, I have not heard anything about looming paper shortages, not yet.
Wooden fabric.
But what it is like the covers get printed at a different time than the interiors, even on different presses sometimes.
Right.
So we get our covers in 1 week, they print them. We get our interiors in the next week, they print them and then marry them together, then bind them all together. You can save money like Marvel and DC do by not having cover stock. By just printing them all in that one press and binding them right away. So I was getting 3 covers out. They're usually doing Tuesdays, but we wanted to get them out today. We want to get them out today so we can have a long weekend because of Labor Day. We don't want to rush them out on Tuesday. Okay, we got no problem. We got them out today. Like around noon, and all the Pirate Queens, all the covers have varnish on them, which is one of the things I indicate where the varnish goes. But we also put varnish on the back covers because when you pay for varnish, this is all one sheet of paper. So you pay for varnish across. It's not like you pay for varnish on the front cover and back cover separately. That's not how it works. When you pay for varnish, you get the whole sheet. You can put varnish on anywhere you want. Well, it was like noon today when I realized we hadn't put any varnish on the back of Monster Kill Squad and Pirate Queen back covers because we got them in kind of late. We just kind of overlooked it. I was like, oops. Because if you're going to pay for varnish on the front cover, you may as well put varnish on the back cover. So I ended up doing that today as I just overlooked it.
Yeah, you're usually still working on those things until 9 or 10 on Tuesday nights.
Yeah, that's why I'm happy to get them out on Friday night at 3 in the afternoon. All the fires burning the trees up for paper shortages.
If only someone had warned people that would happen.
Yeah.
Nah. Warnings are for the weak.
Well, Yeah.
We got a tornado warning here a couple days ago.
Wow.
They had to issue a flash flood warning for New York City.
Yeah.
The first one in history. That's
Did you
how
see the
bad it
footage?
got.
Did you see the footage of 7th Avenue and 28th Street, the F train?
Oh yeah. Oh, it was more than that.
Mhm.
I mean, there was like, if you would click on search for like flooding in New York City, there was tons of flooding in the subways. But yeah, that 28th Street one was especially. Woo.
A friend of mine who, Doc, who lived in Brooklyn, the apartment that he and his girlfriend just moved out of last year is like the entire lower floor of it is flooded because it was 2 floors, but the lower floor was kind of like the basement level, and it was part of the Brooklyn that flooded severely.
Yeah.
So they were like,
no fun unless you're the Submariner.
unless all your stuff is waterproof.
That reminds me, I saw that there was an 80th anniversary of Aquaman comic out this week.
Oh.
I was like, oh, that looks cool. No way I'm paying $10 for it, but and it of course had half a dozen different covers out. But I can't remember which. There was like the 1940s cover I liked or something. But I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's a good cover. If it wasn't $10, maybe I'd.
Sorry.
Not worth the $10 for the one picture. It actually.
No,
the whole.
That's the main problem I have. Like, it's one thing, the Pirate Queen being $8. Indie comics are supposed to be more expensive than Marvel and DC comics. For Marvel and DC, I wish I had my comic shop doesn't have any dollar bins. They ship all comics like that out to some. They sell them to some guy who puts together packs.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame them for, because if there are plenty, I've seen plenty of people on YouTube who are just like, I'll buy it in the dollar bin.
Yeah.
And if you're never going to impulse buy a Marvel or DC comic when it's new, if you know you can pick it up in the dollar bin or something like it.
Those guys that resell all those bulk buys, I wonder how regional that business is.
Yeah, I don't know.
I may be wrong, but I get the feeling it's like guys in the Northeast, and then they package those off and sell it to other areas of the country.
Could be.
And it all ends up in Chip Rosansky's warehouse anyway. So.
Yeah, that's where all comics end up. But that's okay. He ships them out eventually.
It just went talking about the flooding. Just reminded me that something like I don't know, it must have been 10 years ago. There's this area of New Jersey that floods every time there's a heavy rain, and it's right where our bullpen buddy Wayne Green used to live, and he had all of his comics stored on the lowest level of his mom's house.
Ooh.
Lost all of them.
Ouch.
All the comics that he picked up when we were at Marvel, all the graphic novels, the hardcover graphic novels,
right?
All of his comics and memorabilia and Star Wars toys and all that stuff, because you could see I saw a photograph of it. You could see where the stairs go down to the lower level. It's like a family room down there. You can see like the first stair, and then it's just water. So in order to get down there, you would literally have to just put on a snorkel or scuba suit and go down there. So it was just so tragic because he had so much stuff and so much valuable stuff. And of course the water is all, it's not like it's clean rainwater. It's all water that.
Oh yeah. It doesn't matter if it's clean or dirty water. It's going to wreck it either way.
No, I know. But in other words, it's not like once it receded, it's not like you could just clean off all the toys.
No.
Or wait for them to dry. I mean, that had like bits of dead raccoon in there and whatever. I mean, that was the best of it.
People like Comic Tom need thousands and thousands of books for their mystery boxes. Yeah, I've seen, I don't know who Comic Tom is, but I know that people say, even mycomicshop.com sells mystery boxes too, of all sorts of different descriptions.
I'm not sure I'd ever buy a mystery box.
I wouldn't.
No, I sometimes. Well, you know what it is? It sounds like fun. It really does. It sounds like, ooh, I can buy that. I can spend $20.
You get like
and
18
get these.
copies of Youngblood #1 in the middle. Yeah.
They always promise that's not going to happen, and I'm not afraid of that. I'm just kind of like, I'm always like, whenever it's mystery anything, it's kind of like, ooh, what will I get? Oh, that it kind of sounds like a fun thing, but in reality, you get it and you open it and you get a box full of comics that disappoint you.
It's like a Cracker Jack box. It's like it never lives up to the hype.
And you're like, I could have spent that $20 on comics I actually want.
Exactly.
And who is it? It's I forget his name. One of the New York Warriors. He opens some of the real expensive mystery boxes. All of a sudden, I can't remember his name. Whatever. And he like the $500-$600 mystery boxes, and he always shows them and so. And I'm always looking at him, going, "Man, you could have spent $500 on a comic you actually wanted." I mean, I'm sure he's okay with them, and because he buys and sells stuff, so he'll sell off whatever he can get money for.
Is the $500 or $600 mystery box? Is it ever worth $500 or $600?
Yeah, technically it is. They have slabbed books in there that are worth a certain amount. They have, and like the guy who sells the boxes often puts a Post-it note with the last sale on eBay price.
Oh, okay.
So you know exactly how much that last one sold for if you want. Like if they sell you a $500 mystery box, they're saying it's worth $600.
Gotcha. All right. Well, at least you can resell some of the stuff.
Right, but you'd have to be the one selling it. You know, that you'd have to sell it. They still haven't put out a Golden Age or Silver Age Aquaman omnibus. I just don't think Aquaman's that popular.
Comes and goes.
He just isn't. Who sells enormous amounts of
for those stories, there's just nobody wants to read Aquaman from Morphin Comics in 1941.
No, they don't.
Every time I hear that question, like if you could be any superhero, who would you be? I always say Aquaman, because I'm like, you just swim around all day and talk to fish, and nobody really needs you to do anything.
That's not bad. That's not a bad thought.
And if Cthulhu lives underwater, if you can summon Cthulhu, see.
There you go. Talk to sea creatures. I've never been really into flying. I always figured if I could actually fly, I'd get 20 feet off the ground.
Think how much lobster you would have.
That's true. Not to mention clams.
Have they made Aquaman able to fly? Can he fly?
No.
No, okay.
Wait,
they made Wonder Woman able to fly.
I don't know if he can fly post New 52.
Yeah, I don't know. Because Wonder Woman used to not be able to fly. Now she can.
I'll be back.
It seems a little unfair to have Aquaman be able to fly unless they made everybody else able to swim.
Wow, Comic Tom is a huge YouTuber who sells enormous amounts of mystery boxes monthly. Wow. Bueller told me he has his own warehouse to fill the demand.
Wow.
That's a lot of... That might be the guy my comic shop ships him off to. And he pays like pennies on the dollar for them. So, you know, it's not... But it's like, those are all the ones... He sends them all... Like when my comic shop... When someone pre-orders a 1 in 100 copy, that means my comic shop gets 100 copies of that comic that he can't sell. So that's why.
We talked about that before, that he gets.
Right, right.
That's how you got that the comic with the Jungle Girl.
Yes. Well, no, I think that may have been a sample. I don't know. I think that was so small press. It may have been like a sample one. Because I think sometimes they through Diamond send out samples of their comics. Because
I know you said that the owner of the shop was like, "I'm never going to sell this." Here.
Right. He never said. So I think that may have been a sample that he was just, "I'm never going to sell this." But it may have been an extra one. But he only had like 2 copies of that, so that makes me think it was a sample.
Oh, I got it. Didn't order it deliberately.
Mm-hmm. Here, let's see what other rips we got. Ooh, here's one. July 1995. Let's bring you back to what seems like yesterday. And Image Comics #1s from July 1995.
Ivy.
Or not, pardon me, these aren't #1s. These are random issues. These are not the. Notice Backlash #1, Gen 13 #1, and Spawn 23.
33.
33. Now, Gen 13 #3, Backlash #6. That's what it is. So none of these are #1s. That's what I was going for with this. None of these are #1s. They're just issues that came out in July of 1995. So it's 3, 6, and 33.
Rip Backlash.
Classic mystery box issues.
Yeah. Slab Spawn and read Gen 13.
That's exactly my choice, too.
Because if there's one thing good in that issue of Spawn, it's only the cover.
I think I'm gonna slab Gen 13, rip Spawn, because I've read enough Spawn lately, and read Backlash. Because I've always wanted to read Backlash only because I never have. And there was always issues of that comic lasted like 60 issues or something.
No, they didn't. I think it was.
There wasn't that. It was at least 30, wasn't it?
No, was it? I don't think it lasted that long. Death Blow lasted almost 30 issues, but Backlash didn't. Backlash jumped around.
Backlash was around for a while. I remember because I was called and Brett Booth is like the forgotten comic book artist.
Yes,
he's been working. He's been working steady for 30 years, and no one knows him.
It is read by Jeff Mariotti, but I don't know.
You're sticking with your choices? Yeah. I'm the only one reading Backlash.
I'm reading Gen 13 because it's regular. It's regular Jim Lee plotting and Brandon Choi scripting. You know what you're getting.
Did J. Scott Campbell draw that issue?
Yeah.
Okay. These are just random Image comics from July 1995, Scott. We've got Gen 13 #3, Backlash #6, and Spawn 33. Those are your choices. I'm slabbing Gen 13, ripping Spawn, and reading Backlash.
I would slab Spawn just because I know there's somebody out there that's going to buy Spawn one of these days.
I think you might have a better chance of selling J. Scott Campbell Gen 13.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe you could.
The only thing I like about any of those books is the Gen 13 logo because it looks like Indiana Jones.
It's on purpose. It's it's a variant cover.
Ah.
So I'd probably slap Spawn. I'd read Gen 13. I'd rip up Backlash because I knew absolutely nothing about it, and it looks kind of goofy.
No respect.
There's one important thing you have to keep about that Backlash. One of the characters on the cover is named Dingo, and is named Dingo because he's Australian. And what else would he be named?
Yahoo Serious?
So it's on the cover with Taboo and Dingo. Taboo is Backlash's daughter who doesn't know she's his daughter. And the other guy's named Dingo because he's Australian.
If you're Dingo,
why wouldn't you be?
I'm going to put it on the cover just for Terrence. So.
It's
dingo.
It's the anatomy on that chick that bugs me. Just for that alone, I'm going to rip it up.
Ah.
Well,
the only one not
the anatomy on Gen 13. The anatomy of Gen 13 women.
I'm just saying that the chick on Backlash looks like she's about to put her foot up her own ass.
Well, what about the other two? What are you doing with them? Which one are you reading?
I'm reading Gen 13, tearing up Backlash, and slabbing Spawn for the same reason. Some asshole's going to buy it.
I'm the only one who's not ripping Backlash, and the only one who's not reading Slaving Spawn.
Fine, then you read Backlash, and then you tell me what you think about Dingo.
Read Gen 13. See, we got a cam. I think me slamming Gen 13 will get a few fans. He agrees with Paolo.
I wonder if Backlash is as bad as that Jungle comic we read a few months back when they're chucking spears and everything.
I may have read an issue or two of Backlash. I can't remember. But if I did, it was mediocre. Because Brett Booth is mediocre. He's better now, actually. You know, I would expect him to. He was never terrible.
No, he kind of had to draw like Jim Lee because he was working for Wildstorm.
Right. So he never really had anything to call his own. He always had this, second-rate Jim Lee style.
All right.
Which is probably why no one ever knew who he was, even though he was working in the business for decades.
What if you traded in on an issue of Batlash from DC?
Well, that's definitely better drawn.
Better written, too.
Yeah. Sergio wrote that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the series.
Right, Nick Cardy. Nick Cardy drew that stuff. I think I have like a showcase edition of that.
Yeah, there was like the Batlash series, and was it in the early 90s, I think, that Sergio wrote. Somebody else drew.
No, I'm talking about the one from the 60s I have.
Right. Gotcha.
Or the 70s, whenever it was. I'll have to look.
Yeah.
Another comic I got 12 comics this week. Usually I get 5 to 6 comics, and it costs me $20 to $25. This week I get 12 comics, and it cost me $55. I was like, holy cow.
Ouch.
Big spender. Ooh, what's that one about?
Yeah. The latest issue of Bloom. This one's got some nice art and some nice covers. This one is, and it's a 4-issue series. And it takes place in the early 70s. This guy is an auto mechanic by day and an artist by night. He's working on his own comic. And he meets this girl right here who he's hypnotized by, kind of.
Well, you saw the pants.
He sees her. Yeah, she's a dancer with a band. And he sees her and he's like, wow, she'll be perfect for my comic to be the villain, because he's got an idea for the villain in the comic. And
she's got hypno pants.
Nah. Sergio, oh, great stuff. Okay, that one. I didn't realize they did another one. Might be in that showcase. But anyway, so he asks her, do you want to pose for some photos for me? And he's also just sort of like a normal guy with a fiance and whatever. And she's like, sure. I'll pose for him some photos. And he's painting his idea for her, he's painting all these like runes and glyphs on her. So they go out there for a photo shoot, and and like crazy things start to happen. Ooh, it's hard to explain, but like she starts eating stuff in the wood. She picks up this bug that like just goes right into her eye, and then she's got these like bug lines around her eye. So it's like, we don't know what is she kind of like possessed by some. Anyway, they of course end up sleeping together too. And then like crazy thing, he's like, what did I just do? I have a fiance. And they're like, they can't get out of the woods. They're seeing stuff in the woods that he doesn't. And in this issue, that they're still not out of the woods, and they find this depressing old cat, and she's just like out in the woods going, tee-hee, look at this, I'm talking to the trees, so we don't know what's happening with her. Is she on some sort of she starts being able to talk to tree spirits and stuff. So this guy is just trying to get home, and he's got this woman who's just out of control, nuts now, that mystical things are happening to, and he can't get home. That's it. At the end, she ends up floating right in front of them somehow. So there's something weird going on that we don't know what's going on yet. And like I said, it's to be continued next issue, but it had some nice artwork in it. And some good, and I wish, take a look at this. I don't know if you can see it because it's faded out. They've got, this might be an alternate cover, but it's like a Jim Steranko era Marvel trade dress. I'm like, I want this cover. Oh, that's to 4. I'm like, that cover looks cool. So it might be an alternate cover to 4.
Right.
I'll have to see if I can get that one. But it's been a good. I've been enjoying. It's one. They had the cover to the first issue on Comic Shop News, and it was a really nice cover, and that's what caught my attention and made me get it. But good stuff. Bloom. What's it like? One of those. It's by. I've never heard of them. Hero Tomorrow Comics.
It's not ringing any bells for me either.
Yeah. And you know what it is? I think a lot of these indie comics are making I think they're doing 2 things. My local comic shop was one thing, I think they're making some of them returnable, like the first issues. Some little small companies have been doing that. So my comic shop owner just buy, if they're returnable, he may as well get a few copies of them.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been able to find some of the, like, at least the first issues of this small press stuff. And also some of the small press stuff has alternate covers that are 1 in 10. Well, they're not even 1 in 10. They're, if you buy 10 copies, it opens up the alternate cover, and you can buy as many copies of the alternate cover as you want. So he'll, like, I may as well get 10 copies of this comic and get some alternate covers. And that's how I've been able to get, like, some of the first issues of stuff that I don't even know is coming out. Like, I didn't know that. I think he put that Tarna on my pull list because I had it there. So. And people have all found out now that that passive-aggressive Bad Idea Comics is 2 comics that one went to the West and one went to the East. So people are trying to figure out how to get the other version of it.
Wow.
I need some mints.
What variety of mints? Are you doing spearmint?
I have a spearmint and a golden apple. So I have
That's
mint
not
apple.
a mint.
I know.
How is golden apple a mint?
It's not. They call them mints, but they're not.
Well, it's called
I
an
don't
Apple
know.
Comics
What?
out in LA, and they have their books in mint editions.
Icebreaker mints, golden apple. It's not a mint. It's a candy.
Right.
Well, that's what I don't know why, but I guess that's just their brand, Icebreaker mints, and then they make them whatever flavor they want.
Yeah, there's a rather ridiculous amount of flavors of rather obscure Oreo flavors too.
Oh, Oreo has like non-stop flavors these days.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine on Instagram that's always finding some bizarre new flavor combination nobody's ever heard of before. Fenner, is that the Fantagraphics version that you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't know which one that is.
That's my guess. I'm just curious because I have
I have the Fantagraphics version. That's the only
the
Usagi hardcover.
box set with the 2 books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that one too, and I'm glad I got it when I did because that thing's expensive now.
Yeah, it's out of print and you can't get it. Okay, that is the one.
And it pissed me off when Dark Horse reprinted the first volume of the Usagi Saga, like the Absolute kind of edition, nice leather bound. Even the reprint sold out like that. You couldn't get a copy.
Wow. My friend's daughter really liked Usagi. My friend Sarah's daughter was at my barbecue.
Yeah.
And our friend Bunch gave her some Valerian to read. How old is her daughter? She's like 10?
She is 10.
Okay.
That's Jackie and me.
And Jackie. Bunch gave her some Usagi. I mean, Bunch gave her some Valerian books.
Right.
Which she read at because there were no other kids for her to play with at the barbecue, so she read. And then she finished reading that, and she came in here, and Sarah's like, "Do you have anything she can read?" I'm like, I gave her one of those Usagi hardcovers.
Right.
She really liked that. She's like, "I read 250 pages."
I wish I went someplace and I was 10 years old and somebody gave me some Valerian books to read. I've been happy as a clam.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny. Do you have anything for her to read? And, like, just
a whole house full of stuff.
Right. To your right alone.
What do I really have for a 10-year-old girl, though? That's not. I don't know that I have a lot of stuff for that a 10-year-old girl would like.
That depends on the 10-year-old girl, but I see your point.
It does, but I'm telling you, average 10-year-old girl who wants to read some comics.
I don't give her Archie.
Bone.
Yeah, I don't have Archie. Bacchus Volume 1, I don't think she'll be interested.
No. Bone.
But it might like Gru.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't have any hardcover. Like Clyde fans? No. Invincible? Maybe she'd like, but her mother might not like me giving that to her. That's a little blunt.
I don't think I'd give a 10-year-old Invincible.
Yeah, exactly. Howard the Duck? Got an omnibus of that over there, but I doubt. Yeah, Bone would definitely be one. But I don't have a collected edition of Bone, so.
I think Howard's a little cynical for the average 10-year-old.
Yeah, I don't know.
A lot of humor's gonna go over their head.
Monsters? I don't think so.
No.
Kids like Monsters Inc.
Mr. Monster, maybe.
What was that?
Mr. Monster.
Mr. Monster bores me. It's gonna bore her. You know. The complete Jaime Hernandez books.
Yeah,
she might like the first Love and Rockets, but I don't know.
Leave It to Chance.
Muppet, that I have, but not a collected edition.
She probably would like that.
Leave It to Chance might be a good one.
Tintin.
I don't have any Tintin.
Okay.
Astro City, maybe. I don't know.
It's too bad she's too young for hate comics.
Yeah,
we're milk and cheese
stuff over there. Matter of fact, I might get it just because I have some Amazon points. I really want the 2-volume Hate hardcover set. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
It goes for about $85.
Ooh.
2-volume slipcase edition with all the Hate material in it, from issue 1 to the last annual.
I would totally get that.
Yes, yeah, it's something I definitely been on my wish list for a while. I think I'm going to get it this month, but we'll see.
I'll be sure to steal it the next time I'm at your house.
Mm-hmm. I got the neat stuff down to really cheap. That's the Peter Bag where Buddy Bradley and the Bradleys first appeared in Hate magazine and Neat Stuff magazine.
Yep, I remember
Neat Stuff. That came out with a 2-volume box set with a price on. I think the price started on Amazon at like $100+ and dropped down. I got it at like 50 or 60. Then I saw it like selling for a little while for like $20. I was like, holy cow.
I wonder if a 10-year-old would like Linda Medley's Castle Waiting.
Maybe,
yeah.
I'm not sure. But it's like all of it. It's tough. It's tough to predict.
I just don't know what 10-year-olds are reading nowadays. I mean, I see so many of the kids that they just can't. It's nothing but anime, and
right.
I'm sorry, manga, and I mean, even the stuff that we put out at Harper, like they just started a graphic novel division like a year, maybe 2 years ago, But all it is manga. I mean, talk about a nightmare. It's not only do we put out these books about societies full of cats, but now there are manga books that are adapted from these cat society books, and it's
Good.
It's selling.
what they're reading. But it's all the graphic novels are manga.
Do you think a kid would like Kaiju Max?
No,
Okay, I just wondered.
that's way too
Way
adult.
over the
That's
head.
way too adult. It's not. It's Malmo. I think I've seen that one. Wake up, Paolo. Comic Crack thinks you're falling asleep over there.
However, I bet a kid would probably like
With
Age
this
of
new
Reptile.
job.
I've been nodding off at around between midnight and 1 because I'm having dinner at 10:30 p.m. and even then I can't go to bed because I'm digesting. But then I get all tired because I was working 9 hours, practically nonstop.
Yeah.
I have 1 hour for lunch and I'm using it for work.
Isn't that fun?
Then I wake up at 6 when I have all the morning to sleep.
Weird. Another issue of Hey Kids Comics is out.
Hey kids! Wait, is that? It looks like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
No.
It kind of
It's
looks
not.
like Neil deGrasse Tyson crossed with J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, or David Cross.
It reminds
This
me of
is
the
Howard
psychiatrist from
Chaykin.
Watchmen.
This is Howard Chaykin telling, a history of comics with all fake names. But it's good stuff. I enjoy it. The one thing that's confusing me is he's got all the new 1970s guys, and I can't tell one from I don't know the 1970s guys. It's like I know the 50s, 60s guys, and the 40s guys, but then it's like I can't tell. Like one of them's got to be Neil Adams. And then there's other new 70s guys, but I just don't know which ones they are. But I love this back. He gives you sort of fake what's his name? Bishop Midnight, Funk Warrior, who was supposed to be Luke Cage.
You can't come up with analogs for everybody. It's got to be mixed and matched.
Glasses, yeah.
Yeah, there's not analogs for, but some of the like Tarantula Lad is Spider-Man.
Sure.
But
remember,
who cares?
all the guys from the 70s. You got Jerry Conway, Len Wein, Steve Englehart, Marv Wolfman, Chris Claremont, Chaykin himself, Simonson.
There's too many. There's
Yeah.
like 6 guys he came up with that are 70s guys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I just realized that. Who is Because he has them creating Funk Knight Bishop. Who was the first artist on Luke Cage? Was it?
George Tuskaish, I think.
No, I don't think. There was a black guy. Oh, here they are.
Billy Graham.
Was it Billy Graham?
Yeah.
Because they have the writer pitching.
But Billy Graham didn't draw the first issue.
Yeah, Well, I don't know if he's just pitching it to this guy, to the black. And it's just kind of this. Who was the first writer on Luke Cage?
Tony Isabella?
I don't remember at all.
Tony Isabella wrote Black Lightning, but I don't know if he wrote Luke Cage.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. But Roy Thomas may have co-written the first issue, like he used to do with a lot of those.
Yeah, he's a freelancer in here pitching.
Yeah.
How big? If you look at how big the word balloons are, you can tell if it's a Roy Thomas book or not.
And it's like he even did something in here where here the 4 of the new artists sitting there at their drawing boards with a little page done in each style, and that didn't even help me. I'm like, I know the styles here are supposed to give me a clue over to who's who, but didn't work. But like one guy is Neil Adams in here. I know that. I forget which guy, but I'm enjoying this. History of comics. I'm on board. And it is kind of funny to me how much Gil Kane is a major character in this whole thing. I guess because he was around, and they have a Carmen Infantino analog in this one.
Is there
Marty Fabrizi?
Is there a Julie
Publisher.
Schwartz analog too?
What was that?
Is there a Julie Schwartz analog too?
Yeah, I think so. I don't. There's Milton Konisberg and Jess Mayberg. They're both senior editors of DC. I don't know enough about the DC editors of the 60s and 70s personalities to know which is which. But I know Marty Fabrizi, publisher, could just draw that late book himself, but would rather make you do it, is Carmen Infantino. But I didn't know that Carmen Infantino and Gil Kane hated each other.
Yeah.
So that's news to me.
Because
part of the story in this is Gil Kane has been working at Marvel and doesn't want to go back over to DC because Carmen Infantino hates him. And then he eventually does because somebody else wants to hire him, and Carmen sabotages him.
Yeah, but it's probably not known, but Chaykin would know.
Yeah, exactly. Chaykin would know. He was there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I find it so interesting. If anyone would know that Gil Kane... What was that?
Kane goes back to...
I was going to say, if he doesn't know firsthand, he knows people that do.
Yeah.
And I think firsthand, he was Kane's assistant.
Yeah, I was going to say he was Kane's assistant. That's how he started. So that's probably why Gil Kane is such a central figure.
Makes sense.
And he even has what he calls what did he call it? Kiting. He has Gil Kane kiting checks. I think, was that him or was that someone else? Because Gil Kane in the early 80s became persona non grata at Marvel for double vouchering. I don't know if that was what he was referring to, or it was like he says, where is it?
Kane only started working for DC again when Infantino left for Marvel, right? Because sort of the Atom was around 78, and Infantino was at Marvel doing Nova and Spider-Woman.
Yeah. And it says here, it starts the conversation with, "Are you serious, Ted, please? To hell with that. Kiting checks? What is this, the Depression? I am completely fucked by alimony, and I can't squeeze anything out of Verve for at least a month." Verve is Marvel. That's Gil Kane talking. So it says, so he was kiting checks is when it's fraud, is when you like bleach checks and rewrite a check of someone else's.
Right.
And I don't know if that was referring to him double vouchering or he was actually kiting checks to make it by. But I was like, what?
It can have lots of ex-wives. That I don't know.
I am sure he did.
But I mean, how? Why would you double voucher? You know you're going to get caught for it.
That's the quoted
money.
Right
he was desperate. That's a Kaiju Max comment right there.
You remember that John Verporten was doing that scam for paying freelancers, and that's why he died. He had a heart attack.
No way.
Well, I don't. From what I've read, it wasn't a scam. It was that he was a soft touch.
Yeah, people would come to him for money, and he'd come up with because they at the time
he'd let them voucher for work they were going to do.
Ah, I gotcha.
So
one of the problems with Marvel in the 70s was that they would not put out the comics when they were supposed to. So they would push the stories back if they need to and run a reprint.
And what would happen? John Verporten was actually the head of production.
Yep.
He was the head of both, but he also handed out assignments. So he was not only the head of bullpen production. He was the one who, he would say, okay, you're drawing Spider-Man. Okay, you're writing Spider-Man. I guess Marvel was just much smaller now, and somehow that fell to him. So what would happen? What was that?
It's not just that. It's when Marv Wolfman and Len Wein were editors, they thought that editor work was beneath them because they thought of them. Now they were in charge. They were head writers,
right?
So they would assign the big books to themselves, and whoever's doing the other stuff, let Verporten do it.
Yeah. But like I said, for some reason because like when we were there, Virginia Ramita never handed out assignments. She was the head of trafficking and the bullpen, but she wasn't handing out assignments. But anyway, they say Verporten was a soft touch. So if you could, if you needed money, you'd go up and say, "Could you pay me for those Spider-Man issues I'm going to write?" And he'd sign your voucher and pay you for them. And what happened was, I think it was Jerry Conway. Jerry Conway was moving from Marvel to DC.
Yeah.
Except Marvel, and it was a lot of money. I remember reading the number. It was like $100,000 worth of work Jerry Conway owed Marvel.
Wow.
Because it wasn't like I need an extra, few $100. I was like, I didn't even know comic book writers could get that much money out of Marvel. I'm guessing they really abused and this is where I forget where I read this, but the number was so big it made my jaw drop. So DC and Marvel had to negotiate an order for Jerry Conway to be able to work for DC. So then DC ended up paying Marvel like $50,000 for Jerry Conway. I think it was Jerry Conway to go over to DC. That's when they took that power away from John Verporten. From what I've read, it wasn't a scam. It was that John Verporten was a soft touch, and they would always say, "Yeah."
Shooter tells the story in his blog. Because they only found out the extent after he died, because they called Shooter about a check they were cutting him for a story that he didn't write. Being head of production, you could tell so and so is writing Spider-Man number 210. But he ends up not doing it, so it just pushes the 210 voucher to 214 or something.
Right. Those could be the two. Like, I don't know enough about Schwartz and Weisinger to be able to pick up on which ones they are in Hey Kids comics. I know more. That's just like a blind spot for me.
Yeah, I know more about Julie Schwartz than I do about Mort Weisinger. From what I understand, not too many people liked Mort.
Yeah. There is one editor who's not well liked in here. That might be Mort Weisinger. But like I said, I
could be wrong, but
I know the Marvel personalities a lot better because they were out there, and I've read more about Marvel.
Right.
Because they put it all out there. But it's a fun series. I enjoy it.
From what Shooter tells, if you worked for Weisinger, he would terrorize you.
Right.
I wonder if oh God, the guy that I'm drawing a blank now. Jeez, the guy that does Hey Kids comics.
Chaykin.
Howard, thank you. I wonder if he's going to do an analog of the story where Steranko punches out. What's his name?
That was in the 90s, right?
Bill Kane.
Bob Kane.
Bob Kane.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a Steranko guy yet.
I just think it'd be funny if he just did a version of that story.
Yeah. Who knows?
A guy who comes on it has to be a guy who comes on the scene, does a couple of comics, and then vanishes while he's in the limelight.
He jumps around and I think, matter of fact,
it probably doesn't help with following the story.
Yeah, there was one guy. It had to be Roy. There was something that made me think this guy was Neil Adams when he was talking about how there's nobody from his generation in comics. There we go. It's this guy. I think that's him. No, that's not him. No, he's a writer. Pardon me. Don Metcalf writes for everybody, and no one hates him for doing it. He says, so why? Most of these guys have more than 10 years on me. You've got 10 years on me. There's a lot more of them than there are of me. Oh, yeah, your generation's tiny, 6 or 7 guys, and yours keeps growing. I heard Neil Adams say something like that once. But this is a writer, so it might be Roy Thomas.
Or Denny
Don
O'Neill.
Metcalf. Or Denny O'Neill, maybe. You're right.
Because Denny O'Neill jumped around.
Right. And nobody hated Denny O'Neill, writes for everybody, and no one hates him for doing it. That might be Denny O'Neill, Don Metcalf, now that you mention it. But I remember Neil Adams saying that once, too, that there were not many artists of his generation, kind of. Like everybody was older than him or younger than him in comics. So I guess that's true for some writers, too.
I was just thinking,
that might be Denny O'Neill.
Yeah, there's 2 writers, artists, writer-editors/editors I never heard anybody say anything bad about.
Yeah.
One of them was Denny Neal, and the other one was Archie Goodwin.
Yep.
Yeah, Archie Goodwin. I wish I had met Archie Goodwin. Everybody has nothing but good things to say about him.
Very much so.
But he left a little before I got to Marvel and died fairly young. Didn't he die in the late 90s?
Yep.
Yeah, I've always heard everybody liked Archie Goodwin a whole lot. And also Carol Kalish a whole lot.
Oh yeah, everybody. A lot of people say nice things about her. Her I met. She died while I was at Marvel, but I didn't know her.
She died young too.
Yeah. Once again, when I was talking about Joe Maneely dying commuting, I think she died commuting too. She was on her way in at like Port Authority in Havre. Do you remember that name, Carol Kalish?
Yes, I do actually.
She worked down on 9 in direct. She was the head of direct sales.
I do totally remember that. I didn't know she died on the way, like in Port Authority.
Yeah, I think she died coming into work.
I learned about her through Maggie Thompson, the Comic Buyer's Guide.
Yeah.
What a dreadful place to go.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact location, but I think she died. I have a vague memory of it, but. And of course, what is there to say about the Savage Dragon that I haven't said before?
I was wondering if you had bought that.
What was that?
I was wondering if you had bought that.
Yep, I did. Still buying it, still enjoying it. Fun stuff. Dragon got ripped apart. Old Savage Dragon, who's not really him, has got a new metal arm. It just keeps on. It just keeps on trucking. That's what I like about Savage Dragon. It just keeps on giving us more story. And the last thing I got this week, I am lucky I saw this in Comic Shop News and kept my eye out for it. This is The Beauty, All Good Things One Shot, which wraps up the series.
Can you hold it up just a little bit higher?
Let me give you a solo shot. It's a nice cover.
That art reminds me of somebody, but I don't know who it is.
I think it's Jeremy Juan.
It reminds me of some other artist. I'm trying to think whoever it's reminding me of, and I'm drawing.
It's a little Windsor Smith-ish.
A little, yeah.
Yeah. He said this must be the 30th issue, even though it's a one-shot, because he said we did 30 issues. And The Beauty is an STD that makes you beautiful. So people were trying to catch it. And the series started just as people started, like 3 or 4 years after The Beauty hit, where people started like bursting into flame. Finally, there was a price for it, and them trying to find a cure for it. But it was really each story arc sort of was its own little thing, sort of in different genres. Like one was a police procedural, one was a criminal procedural, there was slice of life stories. It was just sort of all stories that took place in this world with this disease having something to do with the story. So for some reason, and there hasn't been an issue of this since before COVID, and they decided to wrap it up with a one shot. It's like if you didn't have this on your, if you didn't know this was coming out, it might not be on your pull list. So it's like if you were buying like the other 29, you might have missed this entirely. And it's like it was just sort of a little end paper wrap up where there's two stories in this. The first story takes place at the very beginning of the beauty happening. And the last story sort of wraps up the two cops who were first investigating these murders that happened when the people, well, it turned out not to be murders. It was people being set on fire. And it wraps up with their story at the end. So it sort of bookends the series.
Neat.
I have not noticed Paul Levitt's in there yet. Cover Michael Zulli?
Yeah, I can see that.
Michael Zulli in there, yeah.
I can see that.
Is there a bit of Jill Thompson too?
What was that?
Jill Thompson?
Jill Thompson?
That cover?
I haven't seen enough of Jill Thompson. I think, like I said, I think this is a Jeremy Juan cover, who's an artist, and he's also the writer on this. Let me see.
I can see a lot more Mike Zulli and Barry Windsor Smith in that than I can Jill Thompson.
I'm not familiar with Michael Zulli, so
Michael
He
Zulli
did the Puma Blues.
Vertigo.
I was going to say that cover reminded me of a Paradox Press comic.
Ah. Yeah, it doesn't have. It's weird. It doesn't have any cover credit. Usually, every cover Jeremy Juan and Nick Filardi.
Yeah, I can remember some house ads for some Paradox Press books. Can't remember what I had for lunch 5 days ago, but I remember those ads popping in my brain after 30-something.
But house ads for Paradox Press books, he remembers.
Human memory is such an odd thing.
It is.
It's
like me remember, the only French I remember is from first year French in junior high when I was saying that stuff. Huh. Yeah, Puma Blue. I think it was Puma Blues number 3 caught my eye way back when. It was the cover with like a mountain lion sitting on top of a building with an American flag draped on him. And just a beautiful cover. That probably 86, 87 maybe. And I first picked up that and then bought a couple of back issues and had that on my pull list to the end.
That just reminds me, I haven't heard anything new from Michael Zulli in quite a while.
No. He did Vertigo stuff in the 90s,
he did a
right?
lot of Vertigo stuff.
Okay.
Sandman.
Because I only knew him really from Puma Blues.
Yeah.
And they finally put out a collected edition of Puma Blues about 5 years ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Which I think it was like Byron Price or somebody who put it out. Matter of fact, I have to get one of those before it goes out of print.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just sent an article to a friend of mine the other day about the story of Byron Price and his publishing. It's an interesting story. It kind of reminds me a lot of the animator who's God. I'm drawing blanks on everybody today.
Ralph Reese was telling some Byron Price stories. I think
there's a lot of analogs. It seems like between the Byron Price stories and the Ralph Bakshi stories. It's like nobody liked working for him.
That's right. There's one more new guy this year who is Colin McKay, editor-in-chief of the premier satire magazine. His only punchline is down. And American Parodice is the satire magazine. I think that's National Lampoon.
Could be.
I don't know who was the editor of National Lampoon, but I figure the premier satire magazine of the 70s has to be National Lampoon.
Have you seen the documentary about National Lampoon?
No, I've never seen it.
It is really, really good. You should watch it. It's
okay.
Stuff.
Oh, another thing they had here too, I think it was they had Marty Fabrizi, who is I just said his name a million. The Flash guy, Carmen Infantino. I think he was hitting on and getting handsy with all the young artists' girlfriends and they were pissed and complaining about it.
Lindsay.
And then he was telling all the artists, no, I don't know why they'd make that up.
Yeah. To answer Terrence, I don't think it is unless there's like somebody just uploaded.
Oh no, pardon me, that wasn't Marty Fabrizi. That was Milt Konisberg, senior editor.
That would have been
Mort Eisinger, or Mort Weisinger, not Carmen Infantino.
Julie Schwartz had a reputation for getting handsy with.
Maybe Milt Konisberg is Julius Schwartz. I don't know.
Could be.
Because they've got two editors at DC who everybody hates. Milt Konisberg, senior editor, cultivates phony elder statesman image while cultivating the unsuspecting. And Jess Mayberg, senior editor, every step up that ladder is on someone else's hands.
Not really sure.
That'll be Schwartz.
Schwartz would be Jess Mayberg, you think, or Mill?
I think so.
Which one had the reputation for being handsy?
Julie
Schwartz.
No.
Maybe he's Milt, and Jess Mayberg is Mort. I don't know. We'll have to
Wikipedia
ask
says
could be amalgams of both of them.
Yeah.
In both.
Oh, and there's
Wikipedia
another.
says National Lampoon had rotating editors. And I don't know.
Point. Yeah.
I don't know any of these
There's
names.
also another new guy in the 70s, Wilson Pollard, in the up and comer category, last issue, but figured out quickly where the job security is. And he does Thriller magazine, which I think is the Warren stuff. So he's Warren.
Jim Warren.
What's his name? The guy behind Warren. Jim Warren, right. So I think Jim Warren is Wilson Pollard. He makes an appearance.
But is he the editor? When did Bill Dubé become editor of?
I don't know. But I figured they're going to put any because Jim Warren has a big reputation as a big personality. So I imagine that's the guy you're going to go with.
Maybe we need to wait for Justin Evans to do the annotations book for it.
No, I think there is a Warren Magazine's annotations book. Came out 15 years ago?
There's a book about I think it's called the Warren Empire or something. It had the word empire in the title, but came out a few years ago. But even though it hadn't been out that long, it's out of print and it's pretty pricey to try to find a copy now.
Comic Crack wants to know if that
unless somebody uploaded a bootleg copy to YouTube. I don't know the official copy on YouTube. I can't remember if I watched it on Netflix or Amazon Prime, or it was probably one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good documentary. A lot of talented people went through there.
Yeah. Well, they paid good money, I think. They were one of those, they paid a lot more than comics.
Richard Arnn, that's the guy who did the books about Warren.
Okay.
He used to have stuff posted in that annotations website that doesn't exist anymore.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. I wish I'd have got a copy of that book when it was cheap. Now it's not. Yeah.
You know what? Did they go on the back burner? You're like, oh, I'd like to read that book, but it's nothing I want to read right now.
You better
go forget about it until you run into it a couple of years later and it's out of print and
it's
5 times the
funny
price.
How some of those books, they'll go out of print and some of them will skyrocket in value.
Because these books are they never leave collections.
And then 2 years later, you'll find 18,000 copies of it remaindered for like $2 each.
Yeah, it's weird.
What book it is, yeah.
So there's like a warehouse find, and you're like, oh, I can get it. That's how I got my Steranko History of Comics in the early 90s.
Well,
is all of a sudden they showed up.
Yeah, that was still available through Jim's company, Super Graphics, for years and years and years. Every once in a blue moon, you'd see it solicited in previews.
Oh, all of a sudden, like my comic shop got a bunch of copies of it, and I saw copies everywhere, and I got it for cover price in like 1992.
Right.
It's like, all right. All right, so we should wrap up now because it's getting late and Paolo needs some sleep, definitely.
And just as a final note for me, it has taken me all 3 hours to figure out, and I just figured out that that's a whale on your shirt.
This is my Moby Dick shirt.
I've really been sitting.
Little guy in a boat.
Yeah.
And Moby Dick.
It's something about the glare that I've been sitting here like,
what is that shape?
I never even paid attention until you just said it. Like, oh yeah.
It just looks like an abstract shape.
It did. Or I was like, does he have a COVID mask around his neck?
What's funny is I must, those shirt a day sites, I don't know, about 5 years ago, I must have replaced most of my t-shirt wardrobe with a whole bunch of them. And now they're all just about worn out. So I have to get some more.
Got to get a new batch.
Yep. I took photos of them and, threw them into the rag pile.
I have a book.
Oh, no, you're gonna get rid of your shiny shirt? Don't get rid of the shiny.
Well, that one's not worn out. But
I take issue with the way they portray the Moby Dick in Moby Dick.
I've never read Moby Dick, but I have the T-shirt.
Yeah, but I've seen cartoon adaptations, and there was an animated series where it was kind of the equivalent of Classics Illustrated. And the thing about portraying the whale, I can tell species of whale, and the only whale that's actually white is the beluga. The beluga is
that's not white.
The beluga is harmless, doesn't have teeth, cannot knock a large boat over.
I think it was supposed to be a sperm whale, but the reason it was white was to make it distinctive. I think it was like an aberration that it was white.
Probably like an albino.
That's what it was supposed to be.
Right.
At least I've never read the book. That's my understanding from a talk I've heard about the book.
And I've read both that and In the Heart of the Sea. I found In the Heart of the Sea to be a more interesting read because it's the true life events that inspired the Moby Dick book, and it's about the ship called the Essex that left from Nantucket and went all the way down south to go around Cape Horn and go hunting for whales. And they just had bad luck after bad luck. I think there were only like 3 or 4 survivors out of the whole crew.
Do you know who wrote the screenplay for the movie version of Moby Dick?
Nope.
Ray Bradbury.
Get out! Really? Wow.
Yep.
It's
there's a reference. There's a reference. I assume only Paulo gets.
Isn't there a Moby Dick book in that new Classics Illustrated line that they're putting out in the newspapers? Because we're having a newspaper collection with graphic novels adapting literary classics, and they're all done by European artists.
There was an adaptation of Moby Dick that was done by Gary Gianni that was nice, just because the drawings fits that period too.
And the shirt that it killed me to get rid of, I had to get rid of my Occam's Razor Shave Club shirt. I love that one.
What about we've always been at war with East Asia?
I still have that one.
Okay, good.
But that one's wearing out, so I like that one too.
I have
but I think I can get them again.
I hope so.
I have a bookmark file of all these T-shirts I eventually ended up getting, but I bet by the time I got around to them, half of them wouldn't be available anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody have a good night out there. We're going to sign off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just call him Ishmael.
We'll catch you next week.
Bye.